Good morning, friends. Welcome to an unscheduled live stream with Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. You know the drill. We're retired New York City police detectives and 9/11 World Trade Center first responders. We're going to be covering today the Harmony Montgomery murder trial. Adam Montgomery is on trial for the murder of his daughter, Harmony Montgomery. He is a no-show in court. Day 5. Day 5 is going to be no different. I would imagine he is not going to be in this courtroom, and we're going to hear more testimony from state witnesses and cross-examination from the defense. Now, I wanted to, as the audience starts to develop, I know that we didn't schedule this or plan it. It's a snow day for me here in New York. I wanted to get from you guys what your thoughts are on Kayla Montgomery's testimony. Now, I know some of you will come into this live stream late on the replay or come in after I ask this question, but how do you feel about Kayla Montgomery at this point? Is she believable? Is she telling the truth, or is she telling a story to get herself off of the hook? Now, we know from the state and the defense attorney, the defense attorney and the state told Kayla Montgomery, if you are found to be perjuring yourself again, as you did in the past for the grand jury, if you're found to be not being truthful here, you can be charged. If you lie again, you can be charged fully back with all of the original charges, and maybe even additional charges added on, because there's many of us, and by a show of hands here, many of us who feel that Kayla Montgomery should be charged in some way, shape, or form in the murder of Harmony Montgomery. She helped disrobe, move the body of Harmony Montgomery. I mean, let me know if I'm off base here. I feel strongly about this. It's like, it makes me sick to think that in May of 2024, she could walk out of prison. She could walk out of prison. When she's being held in jail, she could walk out of jail. A free woman. Come on. That to me is not justice. It's an injustice in my eyes. So if she successfully testifies for the prosecution, in this case, either Adam is found guilty or not guilty, and they do not find that she's being dishonest or lying, either way, with a guilty verdict or a not guilty verdict, she will walk. She'll be free for the rest of her life. That to me is shocking. That is shocking. So, yeah, and people like Sunshine here saying she knows. I think she knows where Harmony is, and I think so too. We know that Adam knows where Harmony is, and when Adam is with his sidekick, Kayla, she knows too. Let's take a listen. Sounds like the jury is entering the room, maybe. Let's see what's happening here. It looks like the prosecutors have set up all of... Okay, take a listen in, folks. Thank you all for joining. Make sure you hit this thumbs up and subscribe if you're new. The jury is entering the room. And we don't even know if she may have not have killed Harmony. She may have. She may have been involved. Nobody knows the truth. That's the problem. How do we know that she's telling the truth? Thank you, Sharon.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. You may be seated. When the state is ready, you may call your next witness.
Thank you. You're under the state police officer. Neil. Thank you. Just watch your step there, officer. You remain seated. Raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony that you're about to provide will be the truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes, I do.
You can have a seat and make yourself comfortable. You can water out. Officer Penton, can you start by stating and spelling your name for the record?
Officer Neil Pentinen, Neil Penttinen.
And Officer Penton, how are you presently employed?
I'm employed by the Manchester Police Department
How long have you worked for the Manchester Police Department?
since January of 2012.
And what is your current assignment?
I'm currently assigned to the Community Policing Unit.
And can you tell the jurors what that is?
The Community Policing Unit, we deal with mostly neighborhood issues, homeless issues, anything outside of the scope of patrol. We'll negotiate things, do community meetings, things of that nature.
And what are your current duties and responsibilities on that community policing unit?
I am in what's referred to as an area officer. So I cover a section of the city when people call in neighborhood complaints or general issues that patrol doesn't have time to deal with. We go deal with those things.
You mentioned starting with the Manchester Police Department in 2012.
Yes.
What did you do for work prior to that?
Prior to that, I was a police officer with the Scottsdale, Arizona Police Department. I was hired there in April of 2005.
And when you came from Scottsdale to New Hampshire, did you go through the police academy?
I originally with Scottsdale, I attended the Mesa, Arizona Police Academy when I was hired in 2005. And when I was hired by the Manchester Police Department, I attended the New Hampshire State Academy, only the law package because I was already a certified officer.
Do you remember what year did you graduate?
New Hampshire, it was 2012.
And sorry, I asked two questions there. Did you graduate from the Police Standards and Training Academy?
In New Hampshire?
New Hampshire.
In New Hampshire, it was just the law package.
Right. And in Arizona, did you graduate from the Police Standards and
I
Training?
did. I graduated the Mesa, Arizona Police Academy in 2005.
So in total, you have 19 years of law enforcement experience?
Correct.
I want to switch gears, Officer Penton. In your current assignment with the Manchester Police Department, do you have occasion to conduct traffic accident investigations?
Occasionally I do.
And can you walk the jurors through what your standard protocol is when you're responding to such an accident?
Standard protocol when I respond to an accident, when I arrive on scene, I'll do an immediate assessment of the vehicles if we need to get them off the road. I will immediately ask if anyone needs medical attention. If they respond they do, I'll get the fire department there or whatever medical needs. If not, then I will immediately ask the drivers for their information, their driver's license, insurance information, their phone number, and as well as the registration of the vehicle. After that, I will ask who the occupants are of the vehicle and get their names, dates of birth, phone numbers, addresses, all for the accident report.
So you mentioned speaking to the drivers of the vehicles, and then you mentioned getting the vehicle occupant information. Where do you usually get that information from?
I'll ask whoever's there. I'll speak to each person individually and get their information. Unless it's a child, then I will ask the adult who's on scene with them.
Do you typically speak to every individual other than children? Do you typically speak to every individual in each car?
Yes, I do.
And what's the purpose of that?
To get a brief synopsis of what occurred in the accident from different perspectives.
And do you document these investigations?
I do.
How do you document them?
I will immediately take notes on a notepad, and then I will fill out an accident exchange form for the individuals involved in the accident, which will include insurance information, phone numbers, addresses, and which is required by the police department. And then when that is all done, I will make a traffic accident report documenting everything from the scene.
And again, is it necessary during, and we're still talking your standard protocol, is it necessary during that during these investigations for you to see every individual involved?
Yes, I will need to see who's there.
And can you walk us through how that occurs? How do you see those individuals? Do you order them all out of the vehicle or something else?
If it's a minor accident, most of them will just stay in the vehicle. If they are on scene, I will ask who was in the vehicle and take a look at each person. You do have occasions where people will show up who weren't involved in the accident, might be related. So, but I will make sure that I look at each person.
Officer Pentinen, I want to turn your attention to November 29th of 2019. So with that in mind, were you working in your official capacity as an officer with the Manchester Police Department on November 29th of 2019?
Yes, I was.
And are you familiar with someone named Adam Montgomery?
Yes, I am.
And can you tell the jurors your familiarity with him?
On that day, I responded to I was dispatched to a traffic accident at South Wilson Street in Vinton involving two vehicles. And Mr. Montgomery identified himself as the driver of one of the vehicles.
Now, you mentioned these reports that you write following your investigation. Did you write a report following your interactions on that day?
I did.
And have you had a chance to review that before you came here to testify?
Yes, I have.
The accident that we're talking about from November 29th of 2019, does that accident stand out to you in your memory?
It does.
Why is that?
Because Mr. Montgomery was involved in another accident a few days later. And in my police career, that's the only time I've had one individual in two accidents within the same week.
Okay, and we'll talk about both of those accidents, but I want to focus on November 29th. And I think you said that stands out to you.
Yes, it does.
Can you walk the jurors through the initial dispatch that you received and your response to the scene?
It was a two vehicle accident. I arrived. I was working in the patrol capacity that day. I showed up. There were two vehicles at the scene, multiple individuals in one of the vehicles, and there was just one driver in the other vehicle. I went through the standard protocol when I arrived at the location.
And when you say multiple individuals in one of the vehicles, whose vehicle was that?
That was Mr. Montgomery's vehicle.
And were you able to identify the individuals that were in Mr. Montgomery's vehicle?
I did.
And who was in Mr. Montgomery's vehicle?
In Mr. Montgomery's vehicle, I believe Kayla Montgomery identified herself as one of the rear passengers. There was an individual in the front seat. I would need as an adult female in the front seat, I would need to look at my report to refresh my memory of her name.
Do you believe that looking at your report, reviewing your report would refresh your recollection?
Yes, it would.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes, you may.
This gets Ed so frustrated. Ed Wallace always says, you come in to testify. Why not know? Why have to get refreshed? But I think that they do this just so they're sure. And also it shows the defense that the officer is not just going based on his memory, because it's going back some years. So this makes it more official, folks. And I think this is one of the reasonings why they do this.
Take your time reviewing. Please look up when refreshed, if it's been refreshed.
Many years in the past.
The front passenger identified herself as Tabitha Scott.
And Officer Pentinen, who else, if anyone, did you observe in the vehicle?
There were two children in the vehicle.
Did you obtain their names?
I did obtain their names.
And what were those two children's names?
Again, I'd have to look at my report to refresh my memory of those.
Please do so. You can't read from it. You can't read it out loud, but feel free to refresh your recollection. Just look up when you're done.
This is all dotting I's and crossing T's, ladies and gentlemen.
They were identified as Seamus Montgomery and Declan Montgomery.
Did you note their relative seating locations?
I did.
And what were they?
I believe it was the center passenger and rear right passenger.
Do you know which one was in the center and which one was rear right?
I don't recall which one was where.
Is that noted in your
It should be noted in my report, yes.
Please, if you believe that looking at your report would refresh your recollection, please do so.
So he's looking at a DMV 104, which is an accident report. And on the accident report, it's standard throughout the country. This DMB 104 lists where everybody is.
Seamus was in the rear middle and DeClan was in the rear right.
Did you see any other children in the defendant's vehicle?
I did not.
And did you, during your response, did you actually look inside of the defendant's vehicle?
I don't recall if I looked in the vehicle or not. It was so long ago.
Other than full of people, how would you describe the defendant's vehicle?
The defendant's vehicle, aside from having 5 people in there, there was clutter in the vehicle.
Is that something that you saw?
I did.
So, officer, I want to switch gears. I want to talk about that second accident just several days later. So I want to turn your attention to December 2nd of 2019. Were you working in your official capacity with the Manchester Police Department on December 2nd of 2019?
Yes, I was.
And on that day, did you respond to another accident involving the defendant?
I did.
And can you walk the jurors through your response, how you initially became aware and what you did after getting that information?
I was dispatched, I believe it was on Franklin Street, or in that general area, to a 2-vehicle accident. And again, the same thing. There were only 2 drivers in this accident. I immediately recognized Mr. Montgomery in the vehicle, having dealt with him a few days prior.
And again, did you follow your standard protocol after your response?
I did.
After you arrived at the location?
I did.
And who, if anyone, did you document in the defendant's vehicle on that occasion?
I believe Mr. Montgomery was the only person in the vehicle.
Do you believe that looking at your report might refresh your recollection?
Oh, yes, it would.
I can have just a minute. Can I approach you?
Yes.
According to my report, Kayla Montgomery was a passenger in the vehicle.
And during that response, did you note her relative seating location?
She was in the front passenger seat.
On that occasion, did you look inside of the defendant's vehicle?
I don't recall if I looked inside or not.
Did you note anything about the defendant's vehicle?
On this occasion, it was the same vehicle I had dealt with the week before. The only thing that I noted about it was the new damage on the vehicle.
And I'm sorry, I want to go back to that November 29th response that you had. Around what time that day did you respond to the scene?
Again, I would have to look at my report to refresh my memory at the exact time. That was approximately 3:53 p.m.
And how about on December 2nd? What time did you arrive on the scene?
Again, I would have to look at my report to get the time that I arrived. That was approximately 10:43 a.m.
If I can have just a moment, Your Honor.
How many of you get frustrated with these sidebars and these little delays? I mean, it frustrates the
No
heck
further
out of me.
questions. Thank you, Officer Pentman. The defense may have some questions for you.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name's Caroline Smith, and I do have a couple of questions for you. The first one involves the December 2nd accident that you were just talking about in 2019. And where was that accident?
I would need to look at my report to get the exact address.
And she knows exactly where the address is.
Do you still have it up?
I have it up here.
Okay, go ahead.
She's got the report in her hand.
That was at Franklin and Market Street.
And that's right around the clinic at Franklin?
It is in that general area, yes.
Okay. And the one at on 1129, where was that?
That was South Wilson and Vinton Street.
Okay. Is that near a Burger King?
It is not far, I believe approximately a half mile if I were to guess.
Okay. And on the, I don't mean to skip back and forth, so I'll stick with the November 29. You don't have a specific recollection of how you talk to people, right?
Not specifically, no.
Whether who is inside the car, who is outside the car when you talk to them, right?
No.
But if people were inside the car, you probably would have walked up to the car and talked to them through the window, right?
Yes, that's generally what I do.
Okay. And you saw the two boys in the back?
I saw two boys there. I don't remember if they were inside the vehicle or outside of the vehicle.
Okay. And when adults are driving around when anybody is driving around with children in the car, you recall that you were given the ages of the children, right?
Yes.
And one was over a year?
Again, I would have to look at my report for the
Please do. And I meant to say under a year.
and to note what the dates are, what their birth dates are, and as of the date. Yes, one would be under a year or approximately that age.
And when adults are driving around with a child under one, that child is to be in a baby seat, right?
Yes.
And if the child is not in the baby seat, what happens?
Generally, it's against the law and
It's a summons.
would be up to the officer's discretion to issue a summons for that or not.
Okay. And the second child was under 3?
Approximately.
And what are the restraints to be on a child under 3?
Also in a car seat.
Okay. And
It's a violation of
how
vehicle
about
traffic law.
a child of 5?
Again, I'm 5 years old. I'm not sure. I would need to look at the exacts, but I believe it's any child under a certain size also would need a car seat.
Okay. And at the very least, I think it's under 12, have to be buckled in the seatbelt.
Yes.
And so you were aware of 2 children, right?
Yes.
And you had no concerns about their restraints, the child seat.
From what I remember, I did not.
By the way, I did say that the 1129 was outside, we said, I believe, outside Vinton and Wilson. The 12-2 was outside the clinic.
Correct.
And the 12-2 outside the clinic was 10:43?
Approximately, yes.
Okay, still morning hours.
Yes.
And the 11:29 was in the afternoon, 3:53, 4-ish,
Correct.
still light out, right?
For that time of year, yes.
Okay. Now, you also said that you gathered pertinent information about the driver in the car, like the license, registration, insurance.
Correct.
And Mr. Montgomery had a license, right?
He did. He provided me a New Hampshire license.
Okay. And as far as you could tell, it was valid, right?
Yes.
Because otherwise there would have been a problem there too, right?
Yes. Another thing I do is I will have dispatch do a driver's license status of any individuals who are operating the motor vehicles.
Okay. And so then on the accident on the 2nd, there were only people in the front seats of the car, no one in the back seat, right?
That's what I documented. I don't recall the specifics of the vehicle, but that's what I documented.
Okay. And again, whether you talked to the driver inside the car or outside the car, you would have talked to the driver, right?
Yes,
And if the passenger was inside the car, you would have walked up to the passenger side to talk to her, right?
I would speak to him either through the driver's side or depending on the situation, sometimes through the driver's side, sometimes through the passenger side, but I will speak to them directly.
Okay. And you did not see any children on that day, right?
No,
You didn't see any boys in the car?
no. If I did, I would have documented it.
Okay.
We heard testimony yesterday from one of the friends that she was called
yeah.
to pick the kids up,
Seating on the, I'm sorry, I'm going back again when I said I wouldn't.
and a summons is discretionary.
29, you specifically documented the seating,
Correct.
and Seamus was in the middle.
I believe so.
So there would have been you can check your report. I think you documented it, right?
Yes,
And so Declan was on one side, Seamus on the other, and then you would have noticed Kayla or been told that Kayla was on the other side, right?
correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Writing summonses are discretionary. So they don't have to write summonses
Any objection to that?
for VTL. It's a discretionary tool to the officer.
No.
Even speeding tickets
Sit down, you're excused.
in certain instances are at the discretion of the officer. You can get it warned and admonished.
They may call its next witness.
Call Mr. Matthew Gendron to the stand. Mr. Gendron, please call the bailiff. Just watch your foot on the, watch your feet on the cords. I'm sorry. Mr. Gendron, if you would remain standing for just a brief moment, please. Thank you. Would you please raise your right hand, sir? You solemnly swear that the testimony you will give this jury will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Please feel free first. Have a seat. Mr. Gendron, thank you for coming today. I wondered if you would please go ahead and state your full name and then spell both your first and your last name for the record.
It's Matthew Gendron, MATTHEWGENDRON,
And Mr. Gendron, what town are you currently living in?
Manchester.
How long have you lived here in Manchester?
About 12 years or so.
And right now, are you working?
Yes, sir.
What type of work do you do in general?
I work in a restaurant
How long have you been doing that kind of work?
most of my life, but I've been at my current job for close to 5 years now.
Let me ask, at one point in 2019, did you ever work at a Dunkin' Donuts?
Yes, sir.
And where was that Dunkin' Donuts?
It's located at Beach Street in Manchester, New Hampshire.
While you were there, did you ever work with somebody by the name of Adam Montgomery?
Yes, sir.
And with regards to Adam Montgomery, do you know who his wife is? Or was?
Kayla Montgomery.
Did you meet her there as well?
Yes, sir.
And how long did you work there with Adam Montgomery and Kayla Montgomery?
Probably around a year or so.
How long overall did you work at that Dunkin' Donuts?
I think I worked there 2 years.
Did you get the job, or were you working there when Adam Montgomery started working there, or was he working there when you got there?
He was already employed when I got there.
And what about Kayla Montgomery?
Same.
Same thing. All right. Did you ever hang out with Adam Montgomery?
A few times.
And did you ever friend him on Facebook?
Yes, sir.
Would you send messages back and forth to each other?
Yep.
All right. And back in 2019, about how often would you guys talk with each other?
I try to initiate a conversation every week or so.
were you still working at Dunkin' Donuts when Adam Montgomery stopped working at Dunkin' Donuts?
Yes.
All right.
This trial is moving quickly, but the sidebars and the stoppages is what's adding to the time. Make sure you hit the thumbs up and subscribe for a chance for free memberships. I'm going to be giving away 5 more free memberships when we hit 500 thumbs up and 500 watching. We're getting close, folks. Thank you all for being here.
Show you what's going to mark State's Exhibit 101. Do you recognize that person?
Yes, sir.
And who is this?
That is Adam Montgomery.
That's the person that you worked with?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to also show you State's Exhibit 11 for identification purposes.
Any questions? Put hashtag DutyRon in the chat. I'll try to answer as many as I can. And Ed's on the plane. So hashtag DutyRon, hashtag Ed. Trichonis takes the cake, Ed. That's
one more exhibit. This one is marked State's Exhibit 11 for identification purposes only.
Okay.
And I'm going to, first of all, I'm just going to remove these police reports here. I want to ask you just about that particular exhibit. Wonder if you could go ahead and flip through all 3 pages just for a moment for yourself, just to orient yourself with it.
yes. I took a snow day, Debbie.
These particular images, what are these images of?
Of a Facebook chat with myself and Adam and Kayla.
And was that on your Facebook page?
Correct.
With regards to the conversation that you have there, do you remember that conversation?
Yes.
And do you remember having looked at those images at the time that you received them?
Yes.
Other than the fact that they're on paper and there's a little red sticker down at the bottom of the first page, any sort of alterations or changes to those images compared to when you saw them and you first got this message?
Not to my knowledge.
And are they accurate in terms of the time and date that you remember getting this message from the defendant?
Yes, sir.
At this point, Your Honor, I'd ask for the identification to be stricken from State's Exhibit 11 and to publish.
Any objection? I'm sorry, you said no objection. Without objection, thank you. The ID is stricken. It's entered as a full exhibit.
I'll be covering that later today, Schmitty Schmacks.
Mr. Jenner, I'm going to go ahead and leave this copy here if for some reason you need to refer to it. But I'd like to draw your attention to the screen. Have you, walk us through this exhibit together so we can understand this message that you got as you testified from the defendant and his Facebook page.
Who wishes
So,
the VA had a mic
Back
all the
in,
time on
let's
them?
go ahead to December 8th of 2019. Were you still working at Dunkin' Donuts on December 8th?
I don't recall. Maybe.
And well, with regards to at that point in time, do you know if, you said you're not too sure if you were
At the
working.
time of these messages, I was at a different restaurant.
You were at a different
Yeah.
restaurant. Okay. So you're no longer working with the defendant at Dunkin'
Correct.
Donuts. All right. I'd like to go ahead and draw your attention. You can either look down or look at the screen behind you. And I want to go ahead and draw your attention to page 1 of Exhibit 11. And with regards to that, is this what you're seeing on the screen behind you? Can you just confirm for us that is page 1 of Exhibit 11?
Yes.
Okay. And I'd like to go ahead and ask you about the conversation itself. First of all, what time did you get these messages on, specifically on the 8th? When did they start appearing?
After midnight.
After midnight on the 8th? And specifically, what time did you first get the very first message here from
12:13 a.m. It says.
12:13 a.m.?
Yep.
Okay. With regards to that, particular time, could you go ahead and please read that message for us, the message that you received at 12:13 a.m.?
Hey, need help ASAP. Please need a jump and jumper cables ASAP.
Okay. And separate from that, did you get another message right afterwards, or excuse me, shortly thereafter?
Yes.
And what time did you get that second message?
12:58
Okay. And what was the message that you got then?
says, I need a jump. My car died. We've been sleeping in our car and our battery just died.
Now, separate from that, did you then start responding back to this Facebook message from Mr. Montgomery?
Yes.
All right. And what did you write?
I said, I don't have any cables.
And then what's the next message that you received in this conversation?
This is Kayla. Will you bring me to a store to get them? I'll give you gas money. We will literally die tonight.
And with regards to that message, at that point, when it says this is Kayla, who do you believe now has the phone?
I believe it was Kayla. That was a joint account they had together.
Okay. In general, when you received messages from this account, were you able to tell who it was from, whether it was from Adam Montgomery or whether it was from Kayla?
Not until they identified themselves.
Okay. And what about with regards to how they wrote, the type of words that they used? Did you notice a difference?
Not really.
What's the response that you wrote back after that? You received that message about we will literally die tonight.
I just got home from work and have to get up early for work tomorrow. What's even open and where are you guys?
Okay. So to clarify, at this point when you're writing, you said I don't have cables. Was that true?
Yes.
Okay. So you didn't.
I didn't have jumper
jumper
cables.
Okay. And when you say when you move on about having to get up early for work tomorrow, you asked where they were. Is that right?
Yeah.
All right. Why did you ask that question?
I was just curious as to where they wanted me to drive all around to at that hour.
Continuing on with the bottom part of page 1 here of the exhibit, I wondered if you could go ahead and what's the response you got to that?
It's okay, Matt. I don't know what it is open. I'm sorry.
That IDKs, I mean, I don't know, or I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. And what did you say back?
It's not your fault. I just don't have cables. It's not so I know what's open.
Okay. And so at that time of night, did you know what was open or not? All right. It has to be a verbal answer. Of a
Oh,
yes
no,
or no.
sir.
I'm sorry. Because the microphone's picking
Yeah.
up and recording. I wondered if you could go ahead and turn to page 2 now and walk us through the next part of this conversation that you're having. After that, you said you didn't know what was open. What message did you start getting on the account?
I think either if mobile don't have them, the only place is Amherst Walmart. So I know you need to get out early. Have a good night. Sorry.
You said get out early. Is that what was written?
That's what it looks like it was written. There's a lot of typos.
Okay. Certainly, would you say that the typos that you're seeing here is different from what you saw before when you got the message saying that it was from Kayla?
I would assume it's from the same person still.
Okay. Even though the
They
typos.
didn't identify they changed people, so I'm assuming it's still Kayla.
Okay. And so what do you respond back when they say, I'm sorry?
I said, it's okay. Try to have a good night.
Well, let me just, excuse me. That's right. Let me just try to get to it. You say, it's okay. Try to have a good night.
Yep.
And what's the response that you got back after that?
I'm going to try. We can die in this weather. We can't, right? We can just really, can't even read that.
Is it CILD? Are we reading that right?
CILD.
Okay.
And it said, hey, I'm at Colonial Village, and Kimmy said she has jumper cables.
Looking at that first line, I'm going to try, can we die in this weather? And then is it we, how does they spell the next word after we?
Looks like CSNT.
Is it fair to assume that might be can't?
Correct.
Okay. Right. We can just, is that VE?
That's what I got.
Okay. Just V, really. And the CILD, what do you think that word is?
Probably
meant to be?
cold.
Really cold. Okay. And then the line afterwards.
Hey, I'm at Colonial Village, and Kimmy said she has jumper cables.
Who's Kimmy? Do you know who Kimmy is?
Kimberly Frayne?
And were you Facebook friends with her?
Yep. I also worked with her as well. The same location.
And with regards to that, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and flip over to page 3 now. And, or excuse me, if you could stay at the bottom of page 2. I apologize. We didn't finish here. You said, can Kimmy jump you? Is that correct?
That's what I said. Yep.
What did they respond?
She don't have a car. That's why I've been messaging everyone.
Okay. And just for clarity's sake, when you said she don't have her car, what was actually spelled?
Was that actually spelled?
Yep.
She don't have GER car. She don't have her car.
Fair to say, though, you interpreted that as her car.
Correct.
All right. And that's why I've been messaging everyone. If you could go to page 3 of that exhibit and kind of take us through how this conversation ended that day. After they said that's she don't have her car, that's why I've been messaging everyone. What was the next thing that you received, the next message?
So do YIH not want to do that?
What did you interpret that to mean?
Probably being, do you not want to do that?
And what did you write back?
I don't really feel like running all over the place at this hour of the night. Did you try 24-hour roads assistance thing?
What were you suggesting to them when you said 24-hour road
Like
assistance?
AAA or just one of those type of services, I guess.
Have you ever used that service in the past?
I didn't have it at the time, but I have used it since.
Oh, that's what I meant. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Have you used it since? And did you find that they do have that ability to be able to jump a car?
Yeah.
Right. And if you could go ahead and take us through the next part of your conversation here. What did they respond after you suggested that they try to find somebody who could do the jump service?
It's not our car, Matt. Our car died today. I'm assuming the word his friend is letting us stay in his. It's all good, Matt. Don't worry about it. I just don't want to freeze tonight. I've messaged everyone else.
So again, some of those words misspelled.
Correct.
And when you were just reading for us, is that your interpretation of those misspellings?
Yes, sir.
All right. What did they say after saying we've messaged everyone else? What did they write?
NOOBE, I'm assuming means nobody
Mhm.
has cables or nobody has their cars.
Okay.
Spelled cats.
Spelled cats, but interpreted as cars.
Correct.
With regards to that, what did you say back to when they were said nobody has cables and nobody has cats? What did you write back?
I get all that. But roadside assistants can jump a car. They have helped me before. They don't ask for proof of ownership.
So when you write that back to them, what's the response that you got?
Yeah, no one of us has insurance. Don't worry about it, man.
And what time was that final message that day?
1:53 a.m.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Gendron, after that conversation on December 8th, jumper cables and frame. Let me ask, did you say, I don't know, maybe a month later in January of 2020, did you have any other Facebook messages from Adam Montgomery or any other discussions with Adam Montgomery about what happened that night?
Not to my knowledge.
At any point in time, did you ever, was there ever a conversation with Adam Montgomery with regards to you not responding that night?
Also not to my memory.
Not to your memory?
It's been a while.
Okay. I could just have a moment, please, Your Honor.
Yes, Girl Friday, they can convict with or without him there. The trial is commencing without him. He just has the legal right not to show up, which is cowardly. And it's contrary to what he said. Remember at his gun trial at the end when he got sentenced, he said, Your Honor, I look forward to defending myself. These heinous
All right, Mr. Chairman, I have
accusations.
one final question for
Piece
you.
of shit.
With regards to the time that you were asked to go ahead and provide a jump, and you had this conversation with the defendant. With regards to that, at that time, did you know where he was living?
I did not.
And were you ever made aware that he was homeless at that time?
That was the first time I found out.
Okay. When did you find out?
Well, during that message that they're living in their car, I had no idea.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Gendron. I don't have any further questions for you. I believe defense counsel will have a few.
Karen, that's correct.
You may step down.
Thank you.
They all had the
We'd ask for
choice.
the witness to be excused, please, Your Honor.
All right, so he's
May
excused.
be excused.
They all have a choice not to show up. It's just not in your best interest not to show up. It doesn't look good. You know, it doesn't look good for the jury. Doesn't look good for yourself. By not showing up in court is showing the jury that you don't care and that you don't really want to be there to fight in your defense of your innocence. So it's never a good look. And we should be happy that he's not there because it's hurting him. It's helping the chance of him being convicted. Even if Kayla's testimony is a little shaky, it's good that Adam Montgomery is not there. It's a good thing because he's effing himself right in the A. He's effing himself in the A. Trying to be nice about it. But you guys get the
At this
gist.
point, the state would call Mr. Aaron Sweeney to the stand.
All right, this is a recall of, I think they said Aaron Sneed. So when they say recall, it's somebody who's already either testified or, yeah, it's when it's a recall, it's someone who's already testified. Not a lot of people in the courtroom. I noticed that throughout this whole trial. How many of you guys noticed that? This is not a packed courthouse. Every one of those pews should be filled with people, in my opinion, but there's barely anybody there. Look, that one row has one gentleman in it.
Please be careful of the wires as you walk through. Thank you.
Mr. Sweeney, if you would go ahead and please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear that the testimony you give this jury,
Yeah.
the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Please feel free to have a seat. And Mr. Sweeney, as we're being recorded here today, would you please go ahead and state your full name, spell both your first and your last name for the record?
Aaron Sweeney, AARON SWEENEY,
And Mr. Sweeney, what city do you currently reside in?
Manchester, New Hampshire,
Okay. How long have you been living here?
since second grade, so a long time.
Long time. Okay. And are you currently working?
Yes.
And where do you work?
BJ's right here in Manchester,
And what shift do you work for BJ's?
third shift.
Okay, so let me ask you, it's about 9:55. How long have you been up?
I actually called out last night to
Okay,
make sure I got sleep.
that's why I just want to make sure that you did get a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
Okay. If there any reason you need me to restate your question or any lawyer to restate a question, just let us know and we'll be glad to do it. Okay.
Okay.
All right. With regards to your work for BJ's, how long have you been working for them?
Almost a year.
Year. And prior to that, back in 2019, what sort of job did you have back then?
I believe that's when I was towing.
Okay. And were you towing for a company called Auto City Towing?
Yes.
All right. I'd like to ask you about a particular tow back on December 7th of 2019 at the intersection of Webster and Elm Street around 12:52 in the afternoon. Do you remember that tow?
A little bit, not fully.
Okay. Well, let me ask you, when you go ahead and you tow a car, can you kind of explain to the jury what sort of procedures that you go through when you're making a tow?
Our office just calls one of the drivers and we're handed a piece of paper saying where we're going and what it's for. And then we just proceed to the location.
What about when it's a vehicle that has broken down? Is there a way that Manchester Police Department might dispatch you out for a tow?
Well, yeah, they call our tow company and then our guy at the front desk dispatches us out unless the individual themselves call for a tow.
Do you end up making contact with the police department before you go to do the tow?
No.
Just go straight.
It goes straight to our front desk and then we're handed a piece of paper and then we go right to the scene.
When you get to a scene for a tow, what are some of the very first things that you do, just generally?
Just contact whatever vehicle's involved and find out what's going on and where it's going.
And from there, when you do have to use a tow, what kind of tow truck are we talking about?
Flatbed. So the big
Flatbed?
ones, yeah.
And could you go ahead and please explain to the jury what's the process you have to go through to put a car onto a flatbed as compared to, say, putting on a car where you're just kind of putting two wheels up and the back two wheels are rolling?
We just get in a good spot, we hook it up, and then we pull it up. That's it, really.
And what about when you have to do documentation of this tow? How do you document the tow that you're doing?
We have a separate tow slip like the drivers use, and we just write like general information on it.
I don't think he ever testified, so it was not a recall. It was just them calling. I just couldn't hear. I couldn't hear them properly. It sounded like they recalled, but I've never seen this guy testify. So there's a correction. Not a recall, first time testifying. You could see all of his lip piercings. I would have remembered that, right? Let me know in the chat. I don't recall this guy at all. So due to a bad mic, it sounded like the state was recalling somebody, but it says state calling. The state called. So I went back and listened.
I'd like to go ahead and show you what's been marked states exhibit 3B for identification purposes only. And I'd also like to show you one that's page 6 of what's been marked states exhibit 3C for identification purposes only. And just have you take a look at those two documents for a moment, please.
Okay.
Okay, do you recognize them?
Yes.
Okay, and let's go ahead and start with states exhibit, page 6 of states exhibit 3C. How do you recognize that?
This is the tow slip that the drivers fill out.
So if you did a tow, is that the slip that you would fill out?
Yep.
And what about states exhibit 3B for identification purposes? What's that?
This is what is typed out by the gentleman at the front desk
Front desk
of Auto City.
of Auto City.
Yep.
Okay. So that's not something that you yourself fill out.
No.
With regards to page 6 of states exhibit 3C, on that particular one, who fills out that information?
I do.
And when do you fill it out?
We fill out just very little bit before the tow. Once we get to the tow, we can fill out more, or if we have to, we fill it out once we get back to the lot.
And by the time that you are done with that tow, when you drop the car back off at the lot, at that point, do you have to have the rest of that filled out?
Yeah. So the rest of this is filled out, and then we give it back to the gentleman who types out the other one.
And with regards to, other than the fact that if you look at States Exhibit 3C, page 6, other than the fact that it's obviously not on the original paper, it's been photocopied, do you notice any other sort of changes or alterations from when you would have filled that out?
No.
Do you recognize your initials down
Yes.
there? And did you fill this form?
Yes.
At this point in time, Your Honor, I'm going to take these back from you just a moment, sir. The state is going to move page 6 of States Exhibit 3C. We move for the identification be stricken from page 6, and to make the child exhibit 3C, we get 3C1.
The objection?
To page 6. So should it, if the exhibit is more than one page, should it be a separate exhibit? Like 3D? May we approach?
Oh boy. Happy belated birthday to my good friend Joey Brooklyn. As they're up, they're showing a close-up of the witness. This is a tow truck driver that responded to Adam and Kayla Montgomery. They had the accident. The car was disabled in that intersection. This is all relevant for the case. People are asking in the chat, why are they talking to this guy? It's to clarify who was in the car at the time. It seems like the state and the defense are trying to go back and forth. The defense wants to make Kayla's testimony. She's the star witness. She's going to be one of the key witnesses that puts Adam Montgomery in prison for the rest of his life for the murder of Harmony Montgomery. So the defense is nitpicking on every aspect of this case to show that Kayla was in fact responsible for the death of Harmony Montgomery and not Adam, which I don't believe is the case. I believe they both, in different ways, were responsible. I think Adam was the main violent
And
source.
I apologize.
Kayla just went along with it.
I just want to show you that.
All right, here we are, back, folks.
And then I'm going to show you, excuse me, 3C. I'm also going to show you State's Exhibit 3A for identification.
You can't drive
Are those the
really
same
good when
pieces?
you're on,
Yes.
when you're shooting up
Other than
heroin.
The fact that this one's a little bit easier to read and on it with a right.
Folks, when you shoot up heroin and you do crack cocaine, speedball, you generally don't have good driving skills.
At this point, Your Honor, State next for strike ID.
Thank you, Wendy.
From
Love you.
State's Exhibit 3A.
No objection.
All right, the ID is stricken on 3A. It is entered as a full exhibit.
Mr. Sweeney, what I'd like to do is to go ahead and give this to you to have right there, and permission to publish your.
Any objection?
No objection.
Yes, you may.
And Mr. Sweeney, I'm going to go ahead and have you be able to look at that photocopy close. But I'm also going to have a projector on the screen behind you. I'd like to ask you a couple of questions about the different sections of this form.
Okay.
And the information you filled out.
Becky, yes, absolutely.
So, Mr. Sweeney, if you just turn around just for the briefest of moments, and is that a copy of State's Exhibit 3A that you have in front of you?
Yes.
Fair to say it's kind of hard to read at that size, isn't it? Is it easier on the paper?
Yeah, I can read it.
Well, I'd like to go ahead and kind of go through a little bit of the information that you filled out on this form, and you could tell us a little bit more about the tow. First of all, where did you go to make this tow?
Corner of Webster and Elm.
On the corner of Webster and Elm?
Yeah.
Okay. And when you ended up towing the car initially, did you bring it straight back to the lot, or did you bring it somewhere else first?
I brought it over to the gas station that was on that same corner.
Would that be Budget Gas right on the corner?
Yes.
Okay. Why did you bring it there before bringing it back to the lot?
So they can get some things out of their car.
Do you always do that?
Only if it's safe enough, or if there is a safe enough area to do it, I will. If not, I just direct them to come back to the shop.
When you were there, where did you park in the gas station parking lot?
Just close to Elm Street, like out of the way of the pumps.
And at that point, did you allow some people to get some stuff out?
Yes.
Okay. Who got material out of the car?
I just only remember two gentlemen.
Two gentlemen?
Yeah.
Okay. Excuse me. And once you've towed a car for somebody to get things out of it, what do you have to do? Do they just kind of climb up the side of the truck, or?
No. So what I did was I extended the bed back out and I tilted it down so they can go up the ramp.
Okay. And then did you see the two people do that? Get
Yes.
things out of the car? Where did they put those things?
In another car.
Do you remember what that other car looked like?
No.
And the two men that you saw do this, do you remember what they look like?
No.
What kinds of things did you see get taken out of the car? Do you recall?
I don't remember. Typically, when people clean out their car, like especially on the side of the road, I just stay by my truck, give them space.
Okay.
I periodically look over to see if they're done.
And once they were finished, where did you bring this car?
Back to our lot
Right.
at Auto City.
So let me ask you, with regards to the car itself, what kind of car was it that you towed?
A Sebring, as the slip says.
Okay. And let me ask again, you filled out the slip on the day of, is that
Yeah.
correct? So fair to say that the information was fresh in your mind while you were there doing this?
Yes.
And for the different areas that you might not know right off the top of your head, somebody's phone number, somebody's home address, how do you get that information?
If the person who's driving the vehicle is there, I just ask them.
When you fill the slip out, where does it go once you get done with it?
It goes to the gentleman at the front desk, and then he does whatever he has to do with it.
And let me ask, is that you earlier looked at State's Exhibit 3B? Is that you said that was a type up version?
Yeah.
Is that where this information will go?
Yes.
What is some of the information in general? I'll ask you about specifics in a minute, but in general, what are some of the information that you record?
Just the VIN number, the make, the model.
VIN number. So is that a vehicle identification number?
Yes.
Do you also record things like mileage?
Nope.
Okay. Do you record a reason to make this tow?
Yes.
And what about your own mileage and going to make a tow? Is that important to record?
Yeah, we've always been told like the mileage from the start of the tow until we get back to our lot.
So what I'd like to do now is go through the different sections of the tow slip with you on State's Exhibit 3A and have you explain what we're looking at and the information that you filled in that day. All right?
Okay.
Okay. I'd like to go ahead and start focusing on the very top section there. Could you go ahead and just tell us what's the time that you made this tow?
12:52.
Okay. Morning or afternoon?
Afternoon.
Okay. And who was it that had requested the tow?
Manchester PD.
Is that typical?
Yeah, it's normal.
All right. What was the reason that you were towing the car?
Disabled vehicle.
And the intersection itself, could you say where that was?
Webster and Elm Street.
Pardon me. Where did you bring the car to?
Auto City.
Where's their tow lot?
It's on Commercial Street. It's right in the same building as our office.
Same building as your office?
Yeah.
Okay. If you could go through as well, the information of the owner of the car, the driver, who do you get that from?
The driver, if they're there.
And what information did you write down in this report?
Adam Montgomery.
What address did he give you?
77 Guilford Street.
And this information would have come from him?
Yes.
All right. Next area I'd like to ask you about is a phone number. Did you get any phone number to contact him on?
No.
Did you ask for one, or would you have asked for one?
We usually ask for one, and if they don't give us it, then we don't expect them to come back
Don't expect them to come back. What does that mean?
for the car.
Okay. At that point, it's believed that the car is going to be abandoned? Is that the...
That's what we assume.
Okay. All right. Let me ask you about some of the other information. How do you, the information that you write down about the car itself? I know you said the VIN number. Can we see that on the tow form?
Yes.
Okay. And what about the year of the car or the make of the car?
That is on there as well.
Okay. And could you again just give us the year, the make, and the model of car?
2010 Chrysler Sebring, silver.
Okay. Was there a license plate on this car?
Yes.
And what license plate was there?
4368206.
Was that a New Hampshire plate?
Yes.
All right. And the color of the car, what was the color?
Silver.
All right. I see that there was something else that was initially written and then crossed out.
Yep, blue.
Okay. Who would have done that cross out?
Me.
All right. Looking at some of the other information on this, I believe you just read the license plate for us. Is the VIN number on there as well?
Yes.
All right. And could you go ahead and read the VIN number for us, please?
1C, 3C, C, 5F, B1, AN, 137502.
Thank you. I'd like to talk about the mileage that you write down. Is that your mileage?
It says service, right where it says mileage and service time?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So that's not the car's mileage.
No.
All right. And the service times, what are the two times that you put down?
12:52 is when I left, and 1:39 is when I got back.
Okay. And when you say left, left where?
Left a lot.
Left the lot. Oh, left the lot to go make the tow.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And then separate from that section, I'd like to ask about the reasons. What were the reasons that you checked off for why you were towing the car?
It was disabled and the type of truck that we have.
Oh, excuse me. One of the last sections I'd like to ask about this particular slip is in your remarks section. You wrote two things. Could you please read those for us?
No registration and no phone.
Okay. And when you say no registration, would you have asked for registration?
Yep.
Okay. And is that a normal part of your practice when you make a tow?
Yes, it's just to get the most accurate information on the vehicle itself.
And about the phone number, same thing?
Same thing.
Finally, you're the tow driver on this car, correct?
Yes.
All right. And did you go ahead and write down your initials on that?
Yep.
Okay. And what were your initials?
AS.
If you could just go ahead and look at the screen behind you for a moment, can you just show us, just point generally where your initials are?
Right there, it says tow driver.
Okay. Thank you. Just a moment, please, Your Honor. Mr. Sweeney, I know that you stated that when you made this tow, there were two male individuals that helped get things out of the car. Let me ask you, when you were making this tow, did you see any children at all?
No.
None whatsoever?
No.
All right. Thank you. I don't have any further questions for you, Mr. Sweeney. I believe defense counsel may have a few.
I do, Mr. Sweeney. My name's Caroline Smith. How are you?
Doing pretty good.
So the car was about 20 years old.
Yeah.
Okay. And when you respond to that location, is Manchester PD still there?
Typically, yeah.
Okay. Because once a car is disabled, especially in a busy intersection, they want to make sure people are moving around pretty safe, right? And your flatbed actually has to go a little bit into the intersection to put the car on the flatbed, right?
Yeah, depending on the angle of the car.
Okay. And if a car is parked straight as if going straight through a traffic light, that's the kind of thing that you would get straight in front of it to put it on the flatbed?
Yep.
Okay. And was the car unlocked?
I think so. I don't remember.
Okay. Do you go in to like make sure the brakes aren't on or anything like that before you tow?
Nope.
Okay. With a flatbed, you can just lift it up?
We pull it up with a tow cable.
Okay. And you don't check to make sure the parking brake's off?
Nope.
Okay. Fair to say that you probably were there within 20 minutes of when that car broke down?
Yeah.
Okay. And you drove over to, so the two guys that came up to get stuff out of the car, was the car already on the flatbed at that point?
Yeah.
And they came over and asked you if they could get some stuff out?
Yeah.
And you said, well, I got to get out of here. I'll pull over to the budget.
Yeah.
And then you stand aside and they go through the car and get stuff?
Yep.
Might be going through the front of the car?
They go wherever they can get access to.
Okay. And it was not locked, right?
No.
Didn't anybody give you the keys to the car?
Either they were in the ignition or they were handed to me, but I honestly don't remember.
You did have the keys though?
Yeah.
Okay. And did you give them back for when they were going through the car, or did they give you the keys after they went through the car?
I don't remember.
Okay. Thank you.
Just briefly, Your Honor. Mr. Sweeney, you were asked a moment ago in regards to how long the car had been there, for maybe about 20 minutes. Do you know how long the car had been there in terms, when you said that 20 minutes, where does that number come from?
Yeah, just by the time we get the call and I get to the scene.
Do you know what time Manchester would have found that car or then turned around at the time between that and sending the note over to you guys to do the tow?
I have no idea. Basically, once the police get to that particular scene, they just call us or they call somebody.
So you know the time when you got dispatched?
Yeah.
But not necessarily what happened?
Nope.
Thank you. No further questions.
Any follow-up?
when a car is broken down at a busy intersection, you try and get out there pretty quick, right?
Yeah.
Because that's a dangerous situation, right?
Yeah.
And so for a dangerous situation, things happen pretty quick.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Would ask the witness to be excused.
You may step down. Any objection to his being excused?
May I have him on call?
Yes. So you'll advise the witness. Counsel approach.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Not to you.
Thank you. State will call specifically Mr. Joseph Tucker to the stand.
Be careful of the wires as you're walking through.
Mr. Tucker, if you would please go ahead and take the witness stand and remain standing when you get there, sir. There we go. And Mr. Tucker, if you would please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you will give this jury will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Please feel free to have a seat. Mr. Tucker, as we're being recorded here today, would you please state your full name and spell both your first and last name for the record?
Yes, sir. Joseph Tucker, Joseph, and Tucker.
Okay. And Mr. Tucker, are you currently employed?
I am, yes, sir.
Okay. And where do you work?
The Catholic Medical Center.
How long have you been working for them?
I just started back up in January.
Okay. And what do you do for them?
I'm the cybersecurity manager.
And prior to working for a Catholic Medical Center as the cybersecurity manager, where did you work?
Solution Health.
Solution Help?
Health.
Health.
Yes.
Okay. And what was the time that you were working for them?
April 2022 until January of 2023.
And prior to that, and I will ask you to just, if you can even move a little bit closer
Yes,
to the
sir.
microphone, I'll have you speak up just a little bit so I can hear you. Thank you. With regards to working for Secure Health, before that, where did you work?
Manchester Police Department, sir.
And again, I'm going to have you just kind of keep your voice up a little bit if you can.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. How long did you work for the Manchester Police Department?
Since 2015, so 8 years-ish.
Roughly that long?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And were you working there in January of 2022?
Yes.
All right. I'd like to ask you a couple different questions about when you were a Manchester police officer. First of all, were you a full-time certified officer?
I was, yes, sir.
Okay. And did you graduate from the New Hampshire State Police Training Academy?
I did, yes, sir.
When was that?
2012.
Around
Academy.
2012?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember your academy class number?
163.
6'3". All right. And let me ask you, with regards to your work with the Manchester Police Department, were there any other sort of law enforcement jobs that you had prior to that?
I worked for the Laconia Police Department before I went to Manchester.
How long in Laconia?
2012 to 2015.
2012 to 2015, and then Manchester from 2015 to 2022?
Yes, sir. I did. I retired full time from Manchester PD, and then I did about a year as a reserve officer working in like cybercrime.
Okay.
So I don't know if you include that.
Okay. Yep. That's what I'm asking about, is all your experience there. With regards to your different duties in the Manchester Police Department, could you explain to us some of the different units that you worked at, different assignments that you had prior to you working in the areas of being a detective?
Yes, sir. I worked in patrol. I worked midnights for all 3 shifts, midnights, 4 to 12 day shift. I had a canine saber. We were primarily on 4 to 12. I helped create the drone unit, so I was part of the drone unit, and then went up to detectives at that point, sir.
And then went to detectives after that.
Yes, sir.
As a detective, what were some of your responsibilities and duties?
I was fortunate enough, I was a cross between general detectives and then also the cybercrime unit. So I assisted in both like digital cases, ICAC tips, cybercrime tips, and then I also did general caseload for detectives.
General caseload, what is that?
Anything from, financial crimes, fraud, homicides, violent crimes. Sure.
And how long did you do that?
I believe I went up in detectives in 2021.
2021.
Yes, sir.
Separate from that, in detectives, did you have any work in doing processing, specifically looking at physical items, see if there's any evidence on it?
Yes, sir.
And in January of 2022, were you asked to assist other officers in doing a search of a 2010 Chrysler Sebring with New Hampshire registration 436-8206?
Yes, sir.
Where was that search done?
At the Manchester Police Department, and we have a vehicle processing bay, which is right outside of where the Sally Port is.
I imagine we might hear some testimony later on about this bay. So could you go ahead and describe it for the jury, please?
Sure. The bay itself, you can only access it from the secured back lot where we park most of the police vehicles. There is a 2 garage Sally Port. The left side used to have like tactical vehicles, and then the right side is where we would drop prisoners off or transport prisoners. Just to the right of that is a single bay garage door that opens up, and then there's also a side door to access it. Both are secure. You need your ID has to get in, and then inside of that bay, it could probably fit a full-size pickup if you took the pickup and went sideways. But
So it's a good sized garage.
yeah, and then we had tools in there for disassembling vehicles, and then we had evidence supplies down there. So if it was inclement weather or it was a long search, you could utilize the bay.
Okay. Let me ask you, what was your role during this search of this 2010 Chrysler Sebring with the New Hampshire registration 436-8206?
I was Detective O'Leary. He's now Sergeant O'Leary. He was we joked around and called him the incident commander, but he was the guy that was in charge of all the crime scene processing. So I was more or less there to assist him.
And what were some of the things that you did to assist him, just generally?
Generally, collecting of evidence items, the log, if there was any pictures. We were blue starring, which is a process to try to obtain any blood samples from the vehicle. So it sounds silly, but you have to turn the lights off for that. So I was the light guy, things like that.
The light guy, so literally turn the lights off,
Yes,
turn the lights on?
Yeah, and then you'd have to set the camera for 30 seconds, 60 seconds exposure to take the photo. So I would have a flashlight just so we could still navigate a little bit without the direct light.
So were you the one administering the blue star, or that was somebody else?
That was Detective O'Leary.
All right. Let me ask you, what roles do initials play at the Manchester Police Department when you're labeling evidence?
Generally speaking, when I initialed something, it was an item that I collected.
Okay. And what were your initials?
JMT.
So if you collected an item today, if you were going to collect this tissue box, and this was going to be an item of evidence that you went ahead and entered in at the Manchester Police Department, how would you have labeled this? If this is your first item of the day?
Sure. The box itself would have been JMT1, and then any items inside the box, like tissues, would be JMT1-A-B, and subsequently.
Okay. Oh, I could see that. So something like, let's
Like
say,
in a backpack,
like a backpack.
JMT1, and then if you have an item in the backpack, you want a 1A, signifying that that item A came from 1.
When you were assisting in doing the search of this car, were there other officers there to help you as well? Besides
Yes,
just
but there-
yourself and Sergeant O'Leary?
Initially, there was a lot of in and out, a lot of people checking in.
All right. And with regards to the items of physical items of potential evidence that you collected, do you remember how many that you directly took and initialed in the way that you just described for us?
8.
8.
Yes, sir.
So that would have been what, JMT 1 through JMT 8?
Yes, sir.
All right. Was one of those JMT 7 a pink toothbrush?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Tucker, I'd like to go ahead and hand you a couple of photographs. Have you look through all of them, and then afterwards, I'm probably gonna have a couple of questions for you.
Yes, sir.
First, I'd like to go ahead and show you what's been marked States Exhibits 4 through 10. And then separate from that, I'd like to go ahead and show you what's been marked States Exhibits 104 through 106. At this point, all of these are for identification. And take your time. I know there's a What's that, Mr. Tucker?
Yes, sir.
Generally, with regards to photographs, do you recognize those photographs?
Yes, sir.
What are they photographs of?
This, if I may, this photograph.
Hold on just a second.
Yes, sir. Sorry.
Let me go ahead and if I can assist, Your Honor. With regards to, let's go ahead and start with States Exhibit 10. What's that a photo of?
This is the photo.
I'm just going to keep it down low. We haven't published it
Okay,
yet, so I
sorry.
can't show the jury. Let me ask you this. I'll just go in one at a time. For States Exhibit 10, do you recognize this? I'm sorry. Apologize. Putting the ID upside down. States Exhibit 5. Do you recognize that photograph?
Yes, sir.
All right. What is that photograph of?
It's the evidence processing bay that I was describing earlier with the silver Chrysler Sebring in there.
The one that you searched?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And other than the fact that it has a red sticker on it, does that picture show the car as it appeared to you at different times during your search of the car?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm going to put that one to the side for right now. Separate from that, I'd like to go ahead and ask you about States Exhibit 4 on this particular one. Do you recognize that photo?
No.
Okay. With regards to that particular vehicle, do you recognize the vehicle at all?
It looks like the same vehicle, but without seeing the back, it's hard to say.
Okay.
But it,
Well, let me ask you, I'm going to direct your attention to the top right-hand side of the windshield in that particular vehicle, and then have you make a comparison with
I'm
regards to.
sorry, Your Honor, I can't hear Attorney Agati.
Okay,
Sure, I apologize. Officer Tucker, what I'd like to do is have you go ahead and look, if you would please, at the top left-hand side of the windshield on States Exhibit 4 in comparison to 10, and look at the two windshields as a comparison between the two.
Yes, sir. It's got the same numbers
Okay.
written on it.
And with regards to, also, I'm going to have you look at the lower left part of that windshield underneath the hood on State's Exhibit 4 and compare it to the lower left part of the windshield on State's Exhibit 10.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do those particular numbers match?
Yes, sir.
If you could please ask you about the next exhibit. See, yep. Going to this exhibit, State's Exhibit 6. Do you recognize that photo?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What do you recognize it to be?
It's the same vehicle, but it's the driver's side, front and rear of the vehicle, but the doors have been removed.
The doors have been removed.
Yes, sir.
And let me ask you, when you were searching this car initially, was there anything that was inside the car?
Yeah, like all the car parts and stuff, sir.
All the car parts?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And let me have you, and are those reflected in that photograph?
Yes, sir.
All right. If you could go to the next photo then. I'm referring to State's Exhibit, excuse me, is it? I read upside down. I
7.
apologize. State Exhibit 7? Or State's Exhibit 7. Do you recognize that photo?
Yes, sir.
What is it a photo of?
The front of the vehicle, the driver's seat, passenger seat, but looking in on the driver's seat.
So looking in the driver's seat. So where the steering wheel is.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And does that photo show the car as you saw it when you were searching the car?
Yes, sir.
All right. If you could go to the next exhibit, please. It should be State's Exhibit 8.
Yes, sir.
What's that a photograph of?
Same context, except from the passenger or from the driver's front, it's the driver's rear.
All right. So move from so right behind the driver's seat.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And does that photograph also accurately reflect the vehicle as you saw it the day that you helped out with the search?
Yes, sir.
And the next photograph. And that particular one, State's Exhibit 9, I believe.
Yes, sir.
All right. What's that photograph of?
It's the trunk of the vehicle, sir.
The trunk of the vehicle?
Yes, sir.
If you could please, I'd like to direct your attention from 9 and also direct it to State's Exhibit 103, 4. Have you look at those two. Do you recognize, let's start with State's Exhibit 103. Do you recognize that photo?
Yes, sir.
What's that a photo of?
It's the trunk of the vehicle, but with more items in it.
Okay. Is that how the vehicle initially appeared, or
Yeah.
did you fill it with items, or did you empty it from items?
No, we emptied it, sir.
Okay. And does it also show the registration for the car there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. State's Exhibit, the next one there should be 104.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what is that a photo of?
Just another close up of the trunk area with all the items in it.
Okay. What kind of items are they?
It's like steering components. Looks like the front CV shaft and maybe a cross member.
Okay. A cross member?
Yeah, like the front frame, like the cross member.
Oh, okay. Okay. Working our way around the car, I'd ask you to look at State's Exhibit 105 and see if you can tell us a little bit about that particular photo. What's that a photo of?
The right rear, the passenger side rear, with the door open, looking in.
Did it also have car parts in it, that side of the car?
Yes, sir.
Can you see that in the photograph?
Yes, sir.
And is that accurate from when you saw it, when you helped with the search?
Yes, sir.
And if you could go to the next smaller exhibit there, yes. That's
106.
106. What's that a photograph of?
The passenger front seat.
So now we've worked our way around the car to the passenger front seat.
Yes, sir. Right front.
And does that appear as you saw it when you helped do the search?
Yes, sir.
What were some of the items that were in that seat?
More car parts, broken glass, snow, just trash.
And does that accurately reflect how it appeared when you did the search?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. One last question for you, separate from these. The last one I believe that we haven't talked about with regards is State's Exhibit 10. Could you tell us what that's a photograph of?
Pink toothbrush.
Okay. And do you recognize that toothbrush?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How do you recognize it?
It was in the back of the Sebring, sir.
Okay. In the back of this car?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And is that a toothbrush that you seized and put into evidence?
Yes.
Okay. And you remember what was the initials that you gave for that one?
JMT7.
JMT7.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. With regards to the photograph, does it look, other than the fact that it has a red label on it and somebody on that photograph has put their initials, other than that, any sort of changes or alterations to it from how you remember it looking when you collected it?
No, sir.
At this time, Your Honor, the state, if I could take these back, please. The state would move to go ahead and strike the identification. Specifically, on the state's exhibits 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, as well as for state's exhibits 104, 105, 106. Excuse me, 103, 104, 105, 106.
Any objection?
No objection to the 100s, and no objection to 4 through 9. I thought I heard something about 11.
Specifically 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, and 10.
I think 10 may already be, but we would have no objection to it being entered.
So no objection,
No objection.
other than 11, which wasn't shown. So those can all be marked as full exhibits. The ID can be stricken.
Mr. Chuck, what I'm going to do in a moment is I'd like to give these photographs back to you to be able to have up close, but I'd like to also project them on the screen on you. So feel free to look either at what is in front of you or what is behind you. Does not matter.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Looks like this is a natural breaking time, so I'm gonna, we'll take our 15-minute mid-morning break now. I remind you, don't discuss the case with each other or with anyone else. Don't do any independent research. We'll see you in about 15 minutes. It's my hope that this will actually be 15 minutes. You can
All right, so the
take a
jury.
break.
All right, guys, it looks like they're going to take a 15-minute break and then we will be back.
All right, take your break now. I would like to start on time if we can, all right? You may step down, but don't discuss the case with anyone, please.
Yes, ma'am.
You will have to stay in court. Go out.
All right. Hi. How is everybody? I'm hoping this works. You guys can hear me. Look. Oh, wait, Ron's back. Ron's back. I don't have to do this. Yay! I'm so excited to see him. Here you guys go.
That was perfect timing, Chris, because I was outside shoveling with an earpiece and listening to the testimony. So what we heard there, folks, is that Ed Wallace kind of stuff. You know, they took that car back to a sterile environment at the garage, and he's going to get into forensic testimony. Thank you, Kristen. I sent her a quick text. I was like, "Hey, I'm going out to shovel. Can you come in and take over?" So thank you for doing that. I appreciate it. So what'd you guys think so far? Let's talk about Kayla Montgomery, because I think that's the main focus of how everybody's feeling here. Is like, she seemed annoyed yesterday. She had that fake migraine on Friday. So when she came back into the courtroom yesterday, she seemed refreshed and, you know, like it was going to be the new Kayla Montgomery. But in typical fashion, she seemed to be irked by the questioning and the line of questioning and questioning her believability by the defense, and that's the defense's job. Is they said right out of the gate in the opening argument that we're going to show you that Kayla Montgomery is full of shit, and we don't believe that she had nothing to do with the murder. And so they're pointing the finger at Kayla for the murder of Harmony Montgomery, trying to take it away from their client, Adam. My glasses are fogging up. The snow is heavy because it rained. So I have one of those shovels that has like the, you know, the bent arm. So it's like you're not killing your back, but it was heavy snow, maybe about 4 inches so far. So, but yeah, Ed Wallace. So yeah, listen to Ed. Ron, are you drinking? No, I'm not drinking. I'm drinking water. Definitely drinking water.
Real quick, how do I sound? I'm checking this. Well, you know, we're in recess.
Yeah, no
Does
good.
it sound okay?
Yeah, your sound is no
Oh.
good. Yeah, it's no good. Anyways, so I know Ed Wallace is on the plane. He might have even landed. But yeah, this is the line of questioning is going to be interesting here when they come back. So yeah, I hold on a second. Let me just do something quick. Hold on till she gets that right. All right. So here we are. So when they come back, hopefully we'll hear some more interesting testimony from this former detective. You know, and initially, I don't know if you guys felt the same thing. I have a snowblower, Cheesy. I have a snowblower, but it's not snowblower ready. Like, in other words, the snow is not high enough to warrant firing up a snowblower. But yeah, I'm interested to hear what he did to the car and what kind of data they got out of it. But again, we have to go back to Kayla Montgomery because that's the main thing here. She, her testimony yesterday, she seemed that she was really irked by everything that was going on, and she didn't even seem like she wanted to be there. And what kind of annoyed me a lot was that she started crying when she was talking about her abuse. And listen, there's no question she's been battered. She's a battered woman. Adam is a violent guy, and he beat her. And we can get into that whole debate and argument, but that, at the forefront right here is Harmony Montgomery and what she did or didn't do. And when they started talking about her being beaten by Adam and how he was treating her, how he was verbally, emotionally, and physically abusing her, that was the only time I saw real emotion from her. I didn't see real emotion from her when she talked about cutting Harmony's clothing off of her in the bathroom and how she put her in the baby carriage and wheeled her over to his job at the Portland Pie Company and handed over her dead remains to Adam to put in a freezer. So there was no emotion there. And that, I think the jury's going to look at that, folks. And let me know what you think in the chat. Is the jury not going to humanize this whole thing and say, wait a minute, this witness is not upset talking about Harmony. She's upset when she's talking about herself. Good morning, Pete, Florida Pete. Good to see you. Let me know what you think in the comment section. You know, and this is not a bash session of battered women, no way, shape, or form. But at the end of the day, Kayla yesterday didn't help the prosecution. She didn't help herself either. She actually, I think she took a big hit yesterday based on her demeanor and the way she was, her facial expressions, her whole attitude was really shitty yesterday. And for someone who's getting a slap on the wrist and having the potentiality of walking away from a heinous act, something that she was heinously involved in, the death, the murder, the destruction, the dismemberment, the crushing of Harmony Montgomery, it made my blood boil even more when I was watching it at my office yesterday. Let me know what you guys think. It was bad. It was bad. What is Ed saying? You're in a tunnel. What? I don't know what he's saying. Kristen, it might be you. Could you just exit out of the studio and see if that fixes it, or mute yourself? Thank you. Yeah, so it definitely wasn't on my end. Hold on a second. I got to just take this call. So call is gone. The call is gone. I don't have to mute myself. So yeah, I think that was just Kristen in the background with the audio going through. Hopefully the audio wasn't too bad and it wasn't, crushing for you guys. I couldn't hear any echoing. So if it was bad, hopefully now it's fixed because Kristen exited out. So let me know in the chat if the audio is good. I hate that when it's not right. Okay, DutyRon, your guest is echoing. I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry. Again, these things where I do stuff on the fly and then I ask Kristen to help, she's just learning about the StreamYard and all that stuff. So I couldn't hear the echoing. Again, it's not, we don't have a perfect situation. So we're waiting for the court to come back up. And while we're waiting for the court, let's put a hashtag DutyRon, hashtag Ed. Questions thus far as it pertains to the trial. What are you guys thinking about what has the state proven Adam Montgomery's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt? What's your guess here? And this would just be a guess because we're not all, we're just halfway maybe through this thing. If you feel that the state has proven their case or close to proving their case, put a 1 in the chat. If you feel like it's undecided at this point, put a 2. I would put a 2. Me right now, I'm gonna vote right now. I'm undecided because of Kayla Montgomery, and we have to guess at whether the jury is believing her or not. So I'm voting for a 2. I see a lot of number 1s. Good morning, Vicky Quinn. Good to see you, Vicky. Kimberly from Ohio says 1. She thinks that they've proven their case beyond a reasonable doubt. And reasonable doubt could be that the jury doesn't believe what Kayla's saying. So let's think about it, But when we looked at the Sincere and Classic, Orrin and Orson West in California and Bakersfield, the trial testimony from the police and the investigators, when it came to Bakersfield Police Department, it got really good. But when it was California City Police Department on the stand, Ed and I and many other professionals that I asked, we were worried that the jury wasn't going to come back with a guilty verdict for Trezell and Jacqueline West, but they did. They came back with guilty verdicts. So you never know what the jury is thinking. We can't get into their mindset. So, yeah, Jennifer L. She says Kayla's attitude or her history of lying doesn't change the evidence of Adam's violent behavior, and people have corroborated it. Yeah, I agree. But there's certain things that she has testified to that are very important. So, Samantha, it doesn't look like it. Let me go to this question because this one is a good one and it's very everybody wants to know this. Ron, do you think Adam will have to appear on the stand eventually? I think he should appear. I don't think that he has to, and it's going to be obviously up to his defense team. But him not appearing in court is definitely not helping him. Is not helping him at all. So that's a fact. There's no way you're getting around that. So still up on the stand is Joseph Tucker, a worker at Solutions Health, a former Manchester police officer, a detective in the cyber crimes. He's conducted or helped to conduct the search of Adam and Kayla Montgomery's vehicle that they were living in. So we want to hear what he has to say. Apologize for this wire that's usually tucked in. I just ran down here quick. Yeah, Ed, again, she has to work out her things. Maybe she had too much stuff open, but she's gone now. So there's no more tunnel. That sound is gone. And it happened probably when I joined into the stream. New Hampshire does not have the death penalty. Do not have the death penalty. Yes, it's Adam's trial, but Kayla is the key witness for the prosecution. So for the prosecution to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, they have to present their evidence and they have to present their witnesses. And she's the key witness in the prosecution's case. And if she's not believable, everything that she testifies to can be, for the jury, not believable. And all you need is a little bit of reasonable doubt. That's it. All right, coming back into the courtroom, folks.
You can be seated. And the witness can come on back up to the witness stand.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you for joining. We're at 405 thumbs up. Once we hit that 500 on the thumbs up, we will give away some free memberships. Remember, folks, I stick to the promise. I stick to my promise. So if you haven't put your DNA on the like button, it's free to do it. Just hit the like button and let's get that number up, and I can give away some free memberships. Yeah, my clock says 10:55. Hers says 10:53.
We have Attorney Brooks. Pardon? Attorney Brooks.
Good eye, James. Tish says they're both guilty. I'm just trying to eat up some time before they come on. Thank you, Lindsay. I believe that too, but it's not what we believe, VUCAT. It's what the jury believes. It doesn't matter what we believe. It
Everybody
matters
ready?
what the jury believes, right?
All rise for the jurors, please.
Yeah, I was shoveling outside, Ed, and I thought of you. I was like, I hope Ed's still in the chat because this is right up his alley. They spoke about the Blue Star, which is like luminol for the car. Becky. Let me know if you like this little bit of eat up of the time where you can get to chat with people. A lot of other places you're just going to watch this happening with no commentary. So thank you, Pete. 50 likes away. Yeah, Curious Irish Angel. That pisses me off. She'll be out in May.
All right, to the jury.
She better not be able to be around her kids. Her parental rights should be taken. That's for sure. I wouldn't trust her around any children. Any. Period. 0.0. Thanks, Sharon. Love having you here as well. Thank you,
Please
guys.
be seated. Whenever you're ready.
I agree, Rachel.
Mr. Tucker, I had been gone through a series of photographs with you just before we took our mid-morning break. Do you see that same stack of photographs in front of you now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Again, what I'm going to do is I'd like to be able to ask you questions about these photos, and I'll go in roughly that order and be able to, you can either look at the photographs in front of you or feel free to look at the screen behind you, whichever one's going to be easier. And I've got a series of questions for you about how you conducted the search and the appearance of the car. All right?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'd like to go ahead and start with State's Exhibit 103. And I wondered if you could go ahead and describe this photograph for us.
Yes, sir. This is the trunk of the Sebring with the car parts in it.
Okay. And you said the car parts in it. Could you just kind of generally point with your hands where those are again?
Yeah, this is all part of the car parts.
Okay. And do you know where those car parts came from?
I believe they came from the front of the vehicle.
Okay.
I believe that's like a CV shaft. Has to do with power to the wheels on the front of the vehicle, but I'm not a mechanic.
Okay. And with regards to the license plate, can we see the license plate on the car?
Yes, sir.
And could you read the license plate for us?
4368206.
Moving around to State's Exhibit 5, what are we looking at here?
That's the front of the vehicle, specifically the driver's side.
And is this also, again, how the car looked that day when you searched it?
Yes, sir.
And so I guess from that question, is this the bay that we were talking about, the evidence bay that you can do the search in?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I can't help but notice it doesn't have a wheel. Did it have any wheels?
No, I don't think it did, sir.
Okay.
But I wasn't there when they took it from the junkyard. This is the first time I saw it. Was I came into work and was instructed to go down and help Detective O'Leary.
All right.
Right, sir, I'm gonna need you to speak, maybe slide your chair over.
I
a
own
little
the
bit,
Chrysler
speaking
Sebring.
into the microphone.
Yes,
because
sorry.
This is recorded and we do need to get your voice. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Before I also had you do to look on the windshield specifically of the car, and we talked a little bit about it. I'd like to switch now to State's Exhibit 4. This particular car, is this the car that the photo that I had you make a comparison of that windshield?
Yes, sir.
All right, and showing State's Exhibit 5 and 4 together, 4 being on the bottom and 5 being on the top. Do you remember the letters and the numbers that I had you point to in the top right-hand corner of the windshield?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And do we have those both highlighted here on the screen?
Yes, sir.
And do you remember me asking the question about the numbers indicated on the lower left-hand side of the windshields?
Yes, sir.
And do we have those also highlighted here on the screen?
Yes, sir.
So with regards to this car, we're looking at the same car here between these two photos, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Working our way around the car, and I'd like to go ahead and kind of move in a counterclockwise fashion from looking at the hood. Moving now around to the driver's side, can you go ahead and point out for us, when you said that there were car parts in the car, show us where those car parts are, and do you recognize any of those parts?
Yes, sir. So the driver's seat, these are car parts, and then the back passenger seat had more car parts in them. And
Do
then
you-
obviously the floorboard.
And the floorboard as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. With regards to those car parts, let's go ahead and kind of zoom in, if we would, to the passenger area, excuse me, to the driver's seat. So zooming in to that same photograph here of State's Exhibit 6. Can you see those car parts a little bit better?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to go directly to one seat and then the other. So if we could start with the driver's seat, looking at State's Exhibit 7, can you point out where some of these parts are that you're talking about?
Sure. Yes, sir. This looks like the bezel, which would go up here where you're looking at your instruments.
Mm-hmm.
These look like some underbody parts, like that might be a suspension component, but again, I'm not 100%, but they're definitely car parts.
Okay. And moving to State's Exhibit 8, if we go into the back seat, right behind the driver's seat, what are we looking at here?
More car parts, sir.
Okay.
This looks like it might be usually an air filter box.
Mhm.
I'm not 100%. And then this looks like it might be a fender well, like up in the inner fender.
Okay. And is it fair to say from seeing here, we don't see a driver's side rear tire as well?
No, sir.
Moving now kind of to the trunk area, if you could, I'd like to go back to State's Exhibit 103. You already identified this photo for us as being that particular trunk of the Chrysler Sebring with the car parts in it. I'd like to, if you could, describe for the jury as we look at specifically State's Exhibit 104, what was the condition of these parts that you were looking at?
Just like that, they look like old car parts. I mean, I didn't take the car parts out and see if they fit the car, but I assume that they belonged to the vehicle.
Was there generally, were there any kind of fluids that were coming from any of these parts that you noticed?
Not in the trunk, but there was a liner, so it's hard to say.
Okay.
I feel like the liner would have absorbed it.
What about in other areas of the car?
Yes.
There were?
Yeah, I believe so. Like the passenger seat, I think the right front had like wetness.
Okay.
So I really need you to keep
yes,
your
ma'am.
voice up. It's a big room and everybody needs to hear you.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
This is
Thank
the
you.
third time.
I believe the right
defense-
front area had wetness.
Okay.
Third time the
Um,
defense is
Thank you for
telling
that.
him
I'm
to
gonna
talk up.
zoom in. Did you help remove these parts from the vehicle to help do the search?
Yes, sir.
Where did they go?
I think we laid out a piece of big parchment paper, like
Mhm.
brown like the same material like a Hannaford's bag, like when you go to the grocery store and you get paper bags.
Yes.
Just a big roll of that. We laid it out, and they go on that roll.
Okay. Did you help, or did you watch as the car parts got emptied from the trunk?
I helped, I believe. Yeah.
Okay. And I'd like to show you now State's Exhibit 9 zooming in on this portion of State's Exhibit 104 in the back corner. Can you tell if there's any particular of a color that's in that photo?
Color, sir?
Yeah, any color that doesn't look like a car part. And feel free to use the screen or the photograph if you wish.
Are you referencing like the looks kind of light blue?
Look like blue to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Once you emptied out the car, were you able to see what that light blue thing was as we look at State's Exhibit 9?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what was it?
T-shirt.
A t-shirt?
Yes, sir.
Right. Just and with that trunk emptied, excuse me, apologize. With that trunk emptied, were you able to look farther into the back of the trunk?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And from there, what were the different items that you saw?
I think it was all clothing, and then the toothbrush. You can see a little bit of it right there.
Right where?
Right here, sir.
And that's inside that circle?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Were you able to see it? Let's say you can see it here from the photo, I take it. Right?
Yes, sir.
Zooming in on State's Exhibit 9, can you show us again where it is that you see it?
Yes, sir. Right here.
Right there?
Yes, sir.
Then showing again State's Exhibit 10. This is the toothbrush that you recovered from that trunk?
Yes, sir.
On that toothbrush, I believe you testified earlier on in direct that it was identified that you logged it in as JMT7. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked State's Exhibit 66 for identification purposes only. Yes, you go ahead and look at the label and feel the bag. Do you recognize that particular packaging as well as the inside?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and what is that packaging? How do you recognize the packaging?
It's the brown bag that I place it into.
And does it have your initials on it, JMT7?
Yes, sir.
At this point, Your Honor, if I'm going to borrow a pair of scissors, I'd like the witness to be able to open it. Mr. Tucker, since we are talking about a toothbrush, I wonder if you would be willing
Yes,
to
sir.
put on a pair of gloves for us, be able to open that bag. And then you're going to put it on a second run. Can you please tell the jury why?
So most of the time when you're processing crime scenes, there's a lot of evidence, and you put on a fresh pair of gloves every time you collect the evidence. And if you don't have double gloves, your hands become very sweaty, and it becomes very difficult to put on a fresh pair of gloves. So it's just easier, especially if you're doing a blood swab and things of that nature. But that's how I was always taught. So that's how I do it. Yes, sir.
You can please go ahead and use those scissors to open up.
Do you have a preference on where?
I would say ask, please, you would please go ahead and cut in an area where there isn't a label.
Okay.
Maybe on the side. Large enough for the applicator. Let me ask you, you're not taking the item out of the bag, just looking at it. You recognize it?
Yes, sir.
What do you recognize?
The toothbrush from the vehicle.
And then ask for the identification of the strip of rope.
Without objection.
All right, the ID is stricken and it is entered as a full exhibit.
Mr. Tucker, could you please go ahead and show us the toothbrush? And I'm going to ask the witness to please. The witness stand up.
For the purpose of,
Just to be able to show both sides of the toothbrush. I don't know that the jurors in the back are going to be able to see both sides.
yes, he may
They
do
can See
that.
the front, but they can't see the back.
That's fine.
Mr. Tucker, if you'd say-
It was the defense, Ed. It wasn't the judge.
Well, pressure right now, I've been tripped. Do be careful. If you can, please, you can see the front of the toothbrush on the state's exhibit 9. But I wondered if you would please go ahead and show the toothbrush, both show the front, and then also turn it around and show all the sides slowly so that all of the jurors can see. And if you could please turn it around to the back so that the jurors can see with the back of the toothbrush. Mr. Tucker, if you could please retake the stand. And Mr. Tucker, let me hold the bag open. You could go ahead and place that back in there. Hold on just a moment. That's the only item we wouldn't ask you to look at, so I'm going to
Okay.
Children in our foster care. Foster care.
Thank you.
Mr. Tucker, moving on around the car, out of the trunk now. I'd like to go over towards the passenger side, if we could. We'll start with the rear passenger side. Looking at State's Exhibit 105 here, can you describe what we can see in this photograph?
Yes, sir. More car parts on the seat, and then some trash items, and looks like a water bottle on the passenger side floorboard.
And I see here that we've got a door on this side.
Yes, sir.
All right. And on the previous side, on the driver's side, were there any doors there?
No, sir.
Moving on from this particular one then to State's 106, could you please describe what we're seeing here and what part of the car?
It's the right front, the passenger side front. Looks like the headlight is on the floorboard, and maybe a reservoir for like washer fluid,
Okay.
something of that nature, and then some snow.
And some snow. Can you point out where the snow is?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And that headlight, the reservoir, the snow, all of those were there when you saw the car in that garage bay, correct?
Yes, sir.
None of those were placed there by officers to your knowledge.
Not to my knowledge.
Let me ask you, with regards to some of the other evidence that you looked at and collected on this particular item, this particular car, separate from the toothbrush, were there also a series of swabs that you took in the trunk?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how many of those swabs did you take?
4.
4?
Yes, sir.
And how were those labeled? Your initials again?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And it was just 1, 2, 3, 4? Or?
Yes, sir. JMT 1, 2, 3, and 4.
4. Okay. Those particular swabs, could you go ahead and describe for the jury how you collected swabs? You talked about it a moment ago when you showed us how instinctually you use 2 gloves. When you do these swabs in the trunk, how do you collect those?
So for swabs, when it comes to blood, if it's not wet, so if the blood's not wet or the material's not wet, urine, whatever it is, if it's dry, we have sterile water. We take it, we pour it into the cap.
Mhm.
Each cotton swab contains 2 in the package, the container. So you glove up. Usually, I would write all the details on the box. There was a little cotton swab box. So I'd write, it's folded, you assemble it. So it's easier to write on it before. So you'd write JMT1, set it up, date, time, all the information, put on your gloves, do the water, get everything ready. And then at that time, because we were using Blue Star on the trunk, there was kind of like a limited amount of time because you have to have the lights off to see the area that you're going to collect. So you'd spray the Blue Star, it would illuminate, you could see that area, and then you had to turn the lights on and collect it. So I was there waiting, ready with the swab ready to go.
I see. So to make sure I understand this right, you're not necessarily administering the Blue Star, but you've got the swabs
Yes.
that you've opened up. Are each one of these swabs, the water that you put together, the boxes, are each one of those sterile before you open them to take a swab?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And is that also very important for you for taking a swab, to double glove and to make sure you're using sterile materials?
Yes, sir.
Those 4 swabs and the toothbrush, are you aware whether or not those were sent on to a laboratory for examination?
I believe the toothbrush was,
Okay.
but I wasn't aware at the time. I assumed everything that we were doing was going to end up at a lab.
We can have just a moment, please, Your Honor.
He assumed everything would go to the lab. Ed, would you ever say that on the stand? I assumed everything would go to the lab. I mean, I just feel like that's more information. He should have never
Tucker,
said
I've got
that.
one last question I want to ask you. The trunk liner itself, with regards to the 4 swabs that were taken, did you also collect, I believe you said at the very beginning, there were 8 evidence items that you took. Could you please tell us what JMT 8 was? What was the last thing that you cut out?
I don't remember.
Okay. If you had a chance to look at a report written from the search that day, do you think that might refresh your recollection as to what the 8th item was?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Tucker, I'm going to go ahead and hand you a copy of what's been marked, just a bait stamp, page 111. I'm going to direct your attention down at the,
I'm going to need you to raise your voice so everybody can hear you, please.
I apologize.
That was
Mr.
the
Tucker, I'm
judge.
going to go ahead and hand you what's been marked discovery page 111, and I'm going to direct your attention down to the bottom of the page. First of all, after having a chance to read through that document, I'm going to ask, is that a write-up of what the search was that you were a part of for these photographs and for your taking of evidence?
Yes, sir.
And I'm going to have my question for you is going to be, what was the 8th and last thing that you collected? I'm going to have you said you didn't remember. I'm going to let you go ahead and refresh your recollection. If it's refreshed, let me know. Just look up when you're done.
Yes, sir. It was part of.
Oh, I'll take that back.
Yes, sir.
All set.
Sorry.
That's all right. And do you recall now what JMT 8 was, that last thing that you collected?
Yes, sir.
What was it?
A piece of the trunk liner.
Piece of the trunk line?
Yes, sir.
So, and how did you get or recover that piece of the truck line?
We cut it.
You cut it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What did you use to cut it?
I don't remember.
And then after it was cut, first of all, you have shown us what you do with gloves and try to present and collect things in a sterile manner. Would you have done that for trying to collect what JMT 8 was, the cutting of the trunk liner?
Yes, sir.
And would you have logged it into evidence the same way you did the other ones, JMT 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Tucker, I don't have any further questions for you. I believe defense counsel will have a few.
Yes, sir.
Here we go. Let's share the mic. Here you go, defense. You'd think they'd have one mic for each side.
Good morning, Detective. I don't believe we've met, but I'm Jamie Brooks with Public Defender, and I represent Mr. Montgomery. I'm also going to ask you some questions about that search you conducted with then Detective, now Sergeant O'Leary. Do you
Yes, sir.
understand?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and this search was on January 1st. Your participation in the search was on January 1st, 2022.
Yes, sir.
And it was the Chrysler Sebring, right?
Yes, sir.
And it was already in the Manchester Police Department bay when you saw it.
Yes, sir.
The pictures that were shown showed what were like the guts or the parts of the vehicle inside, right?
Yes, sir.
But eventually those items were all removed from the interior of the vehicle.
I think so. It wasn't by me.
You mentioned there being, I don't think you used the word butcher paper, but there was paper that O'Leary put down, correct?
I don't know if it was O'Leary, but there was paper down. Yes, sir.
Okay. And the purpose of the paper being down was to put the parts of the car that were in the interior on the ground.
Yes, sir.
Because not only were you looking for items such as toothbrushes, but you were also looking for latent blood stains, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you mentioned Blue Star. Blue Star is a latent blood stain reagent.
Yes. Yes.
It reacts with hemoglobin.
Yes.
It can detect the presence of blood that cannot be seen by the naked eye.
Correct.
It can detect blood that has been cleaned up.
Yes, sir.
It can detect minute amounts.
Yes, sir.
And Blue Star was applied to the entirety of the exterior of the vehicle.
That I don't know. I wasn't there for that.
You weren't there for that?
No, sir.
Were you there for but you were there for the collection of swabs, right?
For the trunk, sir.
Just for the trunk?
Yes, sir.
All the same, you were there for when the Blue Star was applied to the exterior of the vehicle.
I don't remember that. I remember the trunk.
So, okay. Are you aware of Blue Star being applied to the exterior of the vehicle?
Not that I can remember. Yeah.
And what about the interior of the vehicle?
The trunk, yeah.
The state just had you look at a report,
Yes, sir.
correct? And that's from the state's discovery,
Yes, sir.
Bait stamp 111 through 114, state's discovery.
If you say so.
Do you still have that report up there, Detective?
No, sir.
If I may. Permission to approach?
Yes?
Thank you.
You know something? I never hear a witness, especially a former police.
you recognize
detective,
this
say,
document,
if you
Detective?
say so,
I do, yes.
you don't agree.
And
with
you
something.
indicated you could not recall the extent of the use of Blue Star to the vehicle,
I remember the trunk, sir.
but you don't remember any other portions?
No.
Would it help you to look at that report?
Yes, but this isn't my report.
This is the same report that the state just provided you to refresh your recollection.
Right. But this report was written by Brian O'Leary. So he documented the items that I found.
Okay. Okay. Do you have any specific recollection of your participation on January 1st of 2022?
Yeah, I remember going down. I remember helping Brian Blue Star the trunk. I remember helping collect the samples. I remember collecting the items from the trunk. I don't remember doing much more than that for the vehicle.
So for you, you believe it was just the trunk?
Yes, sir. For the most part, yeah.
Well, while we're at, let's go ahead and talk about the trunk then. So Blue Star emits a reaction to the hemoglobin, right? By chemiluminescence.
Right. It's like a neon green looking color, like neon green, neon blue.
Some people say blue.
Yeah.
Light blue.
Right.
And your role in this was to make sure that the lighting was correct.
Yes, sir.
So it doesn't have to be pitch black for Blue Star to work, right?
No, but you want darkness for the camera.
You want dim light.
Right.
And was part of your role to make sure that the camera was functioning?
Nope. Detective O'Leary set that camera up on the tripod and had all the settings. You had to use specific settings, like shutter length that it's open for type of thing.
And you were just ready with the swabs.
Yes. And then like,
And what you were waiting for was to see a reaction, right?
correct.
And it would manifest itself with a light blue color.
Right.
It's a light blue color that would last for roughly 30 to 60 seconds.
Yeah, it's not very long.
But that 30 to 60 second reaction would suggest the presence of blood.
Yes, sir.
Blood that the naked eye cannot see.
Correct.
Blood that could have been cleaned up.
Correct.
So when there was that reaction, you would take those swabs, right? And get samples
Right.
from that area that was illuminated.
Correct.
And you mentioned 2 swabs. One swab would be used to later provide to the state forensic laboratory.
Right.
The second swab you would use for a hemostick, right?
It depends. I think the second swabs in this case, I just used it for the next sample.
Okay. Let's talk about swabs you collected. JMT1, would that be something that you collected?
Yes.
And what was that? Do you recall?
No.
Would it help you to look at something to be able to recall that?
The report, yes.
Feel free to do so and just
Okay.
look up when you're done.
Yes, sir.
So JMT1, what is that?
So you want me to describe what's in the report?
From your recollection, if you like, or I can just ask you questions about it at this point. It was a DNA swab that you took, right?
Right.
And it was a swab of an area that was positive for Blue Star, correct?
Right.
And it was by a piece of insulation.
I can't remember. I remember the trunk, and I remember we sprayed the Blue Star, lights went off. You see the areas that reacted, and then we took a photograph, and then we would look at the photograph after and compare, and then take the sample from that area.
So a swab was used to tame a sample. And was hemosticks also used on JMT1?
I don't recall that.
Fair to say, though, that the process, this isn't the first time that you've been involved in the Blue Star collection process.
It might be. There's one other time that I know of.
Okay.
That was over on Guilford Ave. I just don't remember if this happened before that.
But in terms of your recollection of the protocol or the proper procedure, if there were any reaction, positive reaction to the Blue Star, a sample would be collected, right?
Right.
So JMT1 reflected a swab from an area of the trunk that tested positive for hemoglobin. Let's talk about JMT2. Do you recall what that is?
From reading the report, it says in a trunk by a candy wrapper.
And this was the swab you took because the item tested positive, reacted positively to the Blue Star mist.
Right.
JMT4, that's also a swab that you took.
Yes, sir.
And this was also due to a reaction to the application of Blue Star in the trunk.
Yes, sir.
This was in a bumper crease area by the rubber gasket.
I don't remember.
You talked about this on direct, JMT8. Do you remember again what that was from?
I remember the carpet, the trunk liner. I don't remember what part tested positive.
Do you know if it was the top or the bottom?
I don't, sir.
But in any event, because that area tested positive, and it was probably something you couldn't really swab.
Right.
So because you couldn't swab it, you still wanted to make sure that you collected it.
Yes, sir.
And that's why you cut out a portion of it,
Right.
the portion that tested positive.
Yes.
So again, your understanding of the procedure is that if something tests positive for Blue Star, it's documented, right, in the form of the camera that's taking pictures.
Yes, sir.
It's also documented by the collection of a sample from that area, right,
Yes, sir.
in the form of a swab.
Right. Yes, sir.
It's also documented in a police report.
Yes, sir.
A police report that oftentimes ends up in discovery, like this one, right?
Yes, sir.
Like the report that you're looking at from Detective O'Leary.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Wanda. Welcome, everybody. We're trying to give you information, not let you just watch a trial without answers.
So, Detective, I'm just trying to figure out why you only remember the trunk. Is it because that was the only area where there was the positive reaction for Blue Star on the vehicle?
No, I think that's just the only area that I helped with.
And to the best of your recollection, you don't know how many days of processing the Sebring took?
No, sir.
You were just there for one day,
Yes, sir.
and that would be January 1st,
Right.
2022.
I was in and out a lot, sir, but the day in question, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Ed Wallace, take this question, Ed. Ed's going to answer in the chat. I know the answer, but I want Ed, the expert, to answer.
Let me ask you, Mr. Shepherd, you did not spray the Blue Star in this particular case, correct?
No, sir.
And we're asked about training and experience with Blue Star. How many times had you applied Blue Star in the past at different crime scenes to try to discover evidence?
I can't remember if Guilford Ave happened before. I sprayed some there. A lot of the reason why I think I was involved in this was to learn that process, to see Detective O'Leary do it and assist him with it.
So at the time that you're assisting with this process, how much did you know about Blue Star? You were asked a lot of questions about protocols and procedures and chemoluminescence. Did you know about all of that at the time that you were assisting?
I was given very, very simple instructions that it'll glow and that there is a potential that they could be blood.
Have you ever mixed up the reagents to use at a crime scene?
No.
Have you ever read the directions that are necessary before you mix up those reagents?
No.
With regards to Blue Star, what it's good for and not good for, are you aware, or do you know whether it can cause a false negative or a false positive response?
I was told it can react with rust.
And it can react with rust?
Yes, sir.
You still have the photos?
Yes, sir.
Just a quick question. All right. I'll just take State's Exhibit 104. That's State's Exhibit 104 with registration. Am I reading that correctly?
I think it's 103.
So, excuse me, 103. 103.
Ed, I didn't receive anything yet. I'm checking the email now.
104.
Yes, sir.
Do you think that it might react with rust?
Yes, sir.
I posted part 1 on the members only on Sunday. Jennifer, go and watch it. Part 1 is in the members only live stream.
And the swabs that are taken, where do those swabs go?
I put them into the cardboard container, the swab container,
And what was your understanding of where they would be sent?
the state lab.
State lab. Thank you. No further questions.
Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Tom.
Where's everybody watching? City, state,
May have been
country?
one of the very few occasions that you were involved with a Blue Star application process, yet you still understood that the goal was to over collect, correct, and not under collect.
Right. Yes, sir.
So if there was any kind of a reaction, you made sure that was your job there, was to collect it, right?
Right.
So that it could later be determined if it was a true positive, if it was the result of interaction with blood or from something else, correct?
Yes, sir.
And when you were there, whatever your participation was, you made sure that you were collecting anything that reacted to the application of the spray.
Right. Not every, there were some areas that were very, very, very faint that when Detective O'Leary and I looked at it, we said that clearly was like a rust seam or something of that nature. So we didn't collect those. But anything else, yes.
And Detective O'Leary, to your knowledge, was very familiar with the application of Blue Star. I'll rephrase. You indicated that you had only, this was your first or maybe second time,
Yes, sir.
and that was part of the reason why you were there, right?
Yes, sir.
Was to learn from somebody who did know about the application of Blue Star.
Correct.
Nothing further.
Any objection?
No objection.
All right, you may step down. You are
Yeah.
excused.
So when they say you're excused, basically they're not going to recall you back.
Statement called. Next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So let me show this picture of Ed Wallace up on the steps. He just sent this to me. Yes, Ed, I got the photo and it's coming through on the screen as I'm showing it. There's Ed. Ed, you can tell everybody what they're looking at. All right, our next witness coming in.
Your Honor, at this time, the state calls Sergeant Brian O'Leary to the stand.
Finally, the guy who did the luminol, Brian O'Leary.
Just go to the stand and bring in statement.
Please be careful of the wires as you walk through.
Thank you.
Sergeant Brian O'Leary, folks.
Detective O'Leary, you just stay there. Please go ahead and raise your right hand. You solemnly swear that the testimony that you give this jury will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
I do.
Thank you, sir. Please
Thank you.
Sergeant, as we are being recorded here today, would you please state your full name and spell both your first and your last name for the record?
Brian O'Leary. BRIAN O''Leary.
And Sergeant, I'm going to guess, go ahead from your title, but where are you currently employed?
With the Manchester Police Department.
How long have you been working for them?
With Manchester for 17 years.
17 years?
That's correct.
Okay. And are you a full-time certified officer with the department?
Yes, I am.
Do you remember when you graduated the full-time police academy?
I did in 2003.
2003. Do you remember your academy class number?
I do, 132.
Currently, what unit are you working in inside the Manchester Police Department and what shift?
I currently work the midnight shift as a patrol supervisor.
Okay. Did you work last night?
Yes, I did.
And what time did you get off work?
About 6 o'clock this morning.
Okay. Have you had a chance to get any sort of sleep before coming over here?
Yes.
Okay. If you need us to slow down, if you need us to restate a question, please let either myself or any attorney know, and we'll be glad to do that. So I'd like to ask, what are some of the different departments and units you've worked in at the Manchester Police Department?
I've worked in the patrol division and I've worked in the detective squad.
Okay. And how long have you been in the detective squad?
I was there for approximately 9 years.
9 years.
Yes.
And what are the dates of those years, if you could?
2013 until I got promoted in 2022.
What were some of your duties when you were in detectives?
I investigated crimes that happened in the city of Manchester, as well as processing crime scenes.
Back in specifically January of 2022, were you involved in the investigation into the disappearance then of Harmony Montgomery?
Yes, I was.
And did you continue to remain involved in that for several months?
Yes, I did.
I'd like to ask specifically about the very beginning of that investigation. Were you asked to work with other officers in doing a search of a 2010 Chrysler Sebring at the Manchester Police Department, Evidence Bay, with New Hampshire registration 4368206?
Yes, I was.
Okay. What was your role in the search of that car?
My role was just, to oversee and to help locate, identify, process pieces of evidence, and label pieces of evidence.
How long did it take to do this search?
We did over the course of 2 days.
And with regards to the first day, did you have a detective by the name of Joseph Tucker who was assisting you that day?
Yes, I did.
And was he also assisting you the second day, or was it other people?
It was a separate, a different detective the second day.
Who was assisting you the second day?
Detective Ray Lammy.
Can I ask you, with regards to the collection of evidence, this jury's understanding that initials of an officer sometimes how that evidence gets labeled. Can you describe for us how those initials play a role? So if you were to collect a piece of evidence and you were going to put your initials on it, how does that go into the evidence department?
You would use typically your three initials, followed by a number that identifies that specific piece of evidence that's being collected.
And when you say three initials, are you referring to first, middle, and last name?
Typically, yes.
Excuse me, sir. Apologize, Sergeant. Just trying to make sure that this is working properly.
There's that call.
With regards to those initials, what are your three initials?
BEO.
And did you collect evidence in this particular case from this vehicle, or from this 2010 Chrysler Sebring?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So safe to say then it's going from BEO 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 and on up.
That's correct.
The defense attorney.
At some point in looking at this particular vehicle, did you also test it with a substance known as Blue Star?
Yes, I did.
Could you go ahead and why don't you go ahead and tell us what Blue Star is and what it can do, what your training has been with it as well?
Blue Star is a chemical that detects the hemoglobin in blood. So we would generally spray it out of a spray mist container, and we would get a reaction to the hemoglobin in blood. The reaction that we get, I would identify it as the color of the tissue boxes in the front there, the top part. It comes up as a fluorescent blue.
And you're referring to these tissue boxes on the very top of the jury table?
That's correct, yes.
The top blue or the lower blue?
The top blue.
Okay. And how would you describe that blue? What words would you use?
Like chemiluminescent.
Chemiluminescent?
Yes.
Okay. Bright blue?
Bright blue, yes.
Okay. Excuse me. How do you apply Blue Star to something, whether it's an object or a large area?
The process, it comes in, there's a plastic container, spray bottle, and then a small little foil packet that has 3 tablets in it. We open up the 3 tablets, put it in the plastic container, and then we agitate it. We swirl it around, not to shake it vigorously. And once the tablets have dissolved, we adjust the spray nozzle on the nozzle so that it's a fine mist, not a stream. And then once we have the fine mist, then we start spraying whatever we suspect to be an area where blood could have been or is.
When you say that you spray it on, can you kind of describe how you would spray it on? Is it just, me at my house, spraying some Windex on a glass, or how do you spray it? What's the method you use?
Using the Windex example, it's not like you're using Windex where you're spraying it directly on the window. The method is you want to be about 2 feet away from the object and spray it slightly above it so it kind of falls down onto the object, not spraying it straight at it. It's more of a mist in the air so that it falls down.
And you don't want to overspray because you can overspray it and ruin the sample.
Have you done that yourself?
In my detective career, probably 15 to 20 times.
Okay. When you go to do that, is there a certain process that you follow each time? When you say, okay, I have to go use Blue Star, I'm going to go get reagents. What are the first steps that you do before you get to that step of mixing and agitating?
He asked him how many
the first
times
steps,
he's used
I
Blue Star.
look at the item or the area that I'm going to process to kind of develop a game plan to figure out how we're going to do this. And once I've determined that whatever the area is, it's going to be processed, I'll go mix the Blue Star, as I mentioned before. While that's agitating, I'll get a camera ready. For the camera, we have special functions that we have to set up on the camera. In my time in detectives, I had one camera that was set up, so I would just have to press a button so that it would automatically go to that function. I would double check to make sure that it was on that correct function, that nobody had altered the program before. And I actually should say, before using the blue side, read the directions just to make sure that nothing had changed from the last time that I'd used it. And all my times in doing it, it stayed consistent with how to use it. I got my camera ready. I also get a tripod because the camera has to go in a tripod, because when you are taking a photo, once you have that reaction, you need to have a 30-second or more exposure. So that's what the tripod's for. So it can hold the camera still for the 30 seconds or longer as it takes the picture.
All right. I'd like to ask you about a couple of those different components that you just explained to us. I think you said that you read the directions every time. Why do you do that?
Just to make sure that I'm doing it properly.
Okay. And also with regards to the camera and the camera settings, why is that so important?
The directions say that it has to be at a certain, set up a certain way so that the lens is open wider when it's taking the photo. Because we're also, and I apologize, didn't mention this earlier, we do this in total darkness or with a little bit of light. So that's why we have the long exposure. I would have a flashlight on my person. So when the lights were shut off, we could use the flashlight to, one, help assist us in getting around whatever object we were doing, making sure the camera was set up properly, and then adding just a little bit of light to the area. There's my understanding that the camera will take in whatever little bit of light there is and be able to take an appropriate photo with the reaction.
So when it comes to lighting, do you actually use other officers to help you, have somebody on the light switch?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And you said also that you set up a tripod. Why do you do that?
Because the exposure, once you click the button to take the photo, it's going to be 30 seconds. So if it's on a tripod, the camera's not moving. I'm not able to hold the camera for 30 seconds without any type of vibration or anything like that. So that's why we keep it on the tripod. That takes the photo of the reaction that we see it. Once we see the reaction, the tripod and camera is kept in the same location. The settings are readjusted to a normal photo, and then we take a second photo to show that same area if there was a reaction, what it looks like.
So you're taking a photograph if there is a reaction, and then separately the lights come back on. I just want to make sure I got this right. And you're taking a photograph of the same spot with the lights on, so we can see what that looks like in regular light. When you spray on the blue star, then does it physically change the color of the object? So, for example, if I sprayed it on this piece of paper, is this piece of paper going to turn blue?
No.
Okay. And so you take that second photograph. Why? Why is that important?
We take the second photograph if we see a reaction the first time. That way you can see the photo that has the reaction, the fluorescent blue, where those where the reaction is on the object, and then you can see it again in normal daylight with the lights on.
When you are spraying these items on, spraying this material on, how big an area do you do at a time?
It depends on what the object is.
Can I ask a clarifying question on that then? So if it depends on what an object is, so for example, I wanted to photograph something the size of these tissue boxes that are here, and I just want to spray that and photograph that. When I do that, am I going to want to have my camera up close or far away? And how many times am I going to take a photo of that, do you think?
So the general rule with photography and with scenes is we'd start off with the wide one to show this kind of angle, and then we get to a mid-range photo, and then we wouldn't do a close-up photo. The close-up photo would just be right of that object. If we're using the example of the shoebox, I would probably stand back with the camera probably 3 feet and still spraying at 2 feet, slightly above it, so the mist would come down. But I also want to try to work on getting the top of the table part there, as well as the sides.
Separate from that, then, let's say I had something that was the size of this table here to my right, which, as you can see, is certainly longer than I am tall. If I wanted to go ahead and blue star an item that large, what would be the process to do that?
Same process as far as taking the photos. Something that size, I would probably break it up into maybe half or even quarters. And with each section that would get broken up, I would take a photo just of that area, just where I'm processing. I wouldn't do the big area for this small piece. It will be a photo of this small piece for that small piece.
When you use Blue Star, can you get false positives sometimes?
Yes, you can.
What are false positives?
False positives are you would see the same reaction, the same fluorescent blue color. However, it doesn't last as long as what I've seen to be a positive reaction. The positive reaction is from 30 seconds upwards to a minute. The false positives that I have seen, it turns the bright blue quickly and then it quickly fades.
Do you know what it is that can cause these false positives?
It can be different cleaning solutions, bleach, some chlorine-based materials, also some type of metals. I know iron was one specifically that it mentioned.
Do you know if any foods can cause these sort of false positives?
I don't know of any foods. I don't know.
You said in your experience. So have you seen some of these false positives before?
Yes, I have.
And if you get a positive, what you think may not be a false positive, would you go ahead and then swab that item?
Yes, I would.
How do you do that?
The swabs, it's like a Q-tip, except it's about 5 inches long. The ones we use, wooden handle, and it's got the cotton swab at one end. They come two to a package that's sealed. We'd open the package. We take one swab out at a time. We would use sterile water if the sample that we were trying to collect was a dry sample. If it was something that was wet or moist, we could just use the swab. So if it's a dry sample, we would take some sterile water, pour some sterile water into the cap of the sterile water container, and we would dip this, the swab in the cap, and then we would take a swab of whatever we wanted to take a swab of. Generally, we would try to use the tip of the swab and just like a little swirling motion. You don't have to get the entire swab soaked in whatever the item is, but usually you want to get a good amount.
When you say the tip of the, I'm sorry, you would put the water in the cap of the sterile water solution. Am I envisioning correctly? We're talking about a cap and you would turn it upside down. So the inside is what you would be pouring the water into.
That's correct. It's probably about a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch cap.
And once you go ahead and take a swab of something that came back with what you believed may be positive for Blue Star, where does that swab go?
We then put that in a cardboard box. Cardboard boxes come flat. They're probably 6 inches or so, and about quarter of an inch or so in a square. So we assemble that box together. We put the swab in it, and we close the swab box. And then to seal the box, we would put evidence tape on both ends of the swab box, label it appropriately with whatever evidence numbers we were using. Generally, we put a biohazard sticker on that swab, and then we fill out information as far as the case number with the evidence number.
And where do those swabs get shipped to?
The state lab.
Okay. Did you apply Blue Star to this 2010 Chrysler Sebring with the New Hampshire registration 4368206?
Here we
talked about
go.
Earlier?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Where did you apply it?
I did the interior and exterior of the vehicle.
Okay. I'd like to start with the exterior and kind of work our way in. When you say the exterior of the vehicle, what parts of the exterior?
The entire vehicle, the hood, the roof, passenger side doors, windows. There were no doors on the driver's side of the vehicle, and I did the trunk everywhere.
Sergeant, you've got a series of photographs in front of you that are photographs that specifically are numbered 4 through 10, as well as states exhibits 103, 4, 5, 6. Like you go ahead and look through those for a brief moment. Some will be down there and some will be
This one as well.
yes, if you would please. That's 104.
Okay.
So I'd ask you to go ahead and look through 103, 4, 5, and 6 are the smaller standard paper ones. 4 through 10 are the larger.
So essentially, he said he applied Blue Star to the entire vehicle, outside, anywhere possible. It's a lot of information right here, folks.
All set, Sergeant?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Specifically, I'd like to go ahead and start, and you can feel free to either look at the photographs that are in front of you, or you can also look at the screen as I project them behind you. Either one's going to be fine. I'd like to go ahead and start with State's Exhibit 103. Sorry, I don't know why.
Could you please look at State's Exhibit 103? It's one of the smaller ones.
Yes.
Do you recognize that exhibit?
Yes, I do.
Wonder if I could just approach the witness for a second, excuse me.
Okay, they're having some technical difficulties here. Hold on a second.
Down, unplug it, plug it back in. State's Exhibit 103. Said it still had snow and ice in it.
That's correct.
With regards to the missing parts here, did you also notice whether or not the engine was missing?
Yes, it was.
Overall, what was the smell of the car?
There was the musty, damp, gross smell.
I'd like to go to Exhibit 4 for a moment, please. You recognize this photo?
Yes, I do.
Okay, what's that a photo of?
The same vehicle, the Chrysler Sebring.
The Sebring. When you applied the Blue Star, what appeared as possible positive tests in the trunk area of the car? Did you get any possible positives there?
Yeah, we saw a couple areas that had some possible positive reactions.
Okay. And was that on the second or was that on the first day
That was on
you
the
looked
first
in the
day.
car? Who was assisting you that first day in collecting those swabs?
Detective Joe Tucker.
Previously,
And you
on
said
the
Joe
stand.
Tucker?
That's correct.
That was the previous witness.
And those 4 swabs, were they all from the trunk area on the interior or were there any on the exterior?
Interior.
Once those 4 swabs, did you photograph them and apply the Blue Star in the same manner that you described for us a moment ago?
Yes, I did.
And once you collected those swabs, where were they sent?
New Hampshire State Lab.
Did you also use any tools on swabs? The jury's heard this question before, something called a hemostick.
Yes.
All right, what is a hemostick?
Hemostick is a small strip of paper that has one end, a small portion of it has some sort of chemical on it that also reacts to the hemoglobin in blood.
And did you use any hemosticks here?
Yes, we did.
Okay. Did you use them on any of the spots where you had those, that Blue Star positive results?
When we had the Blue Star positive results, I think I did.
I don't want you to necessarily guess. So
Yeah, I
let
can't.
me ask you, if you had a chance to look at your report, or did you write a report on the search of that car?
Yes, I did.
All right. And if you had a chance to look at that report, would that help refresh your recollection as to whether you used hemosticks on any of those 4 swabs from the trunk?
Yes, please.
Just a moment, please, Your Honor.
So I just switched to another outlet that's covering it that had it looked like a better feed. So let's see if this works a little bit better. I know that they're probably all sharing these feeds together. Ed Wallace is running through the airport. He is an expert when it comes to Blue Star and this type of evidence collection.
You may.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked. Excuse me, has been marked. Bait stamp pages 111 through 114. I'm just going to ask you, do you recognize that document, General?
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize that to be?
This is the report that I did that documented the search of the Chrysler Sebring.
If you had a chance to look at that report, do you think that might refresh your recollection on whether or not you used hemosticks on any of those 4 swabs that were taken from the trunk?
Yes.
If you could please go ahead and do that. Take your time. And then, does that refresh your recollection
Yes,
of
it
what
does.
that is?
Thank you.
Let me take the report. Were there any of those that you used hemosticks on from those 4 in the trunk?
Yes.
How many?
4.
4?
Yes.
You used 4 hemosticks on the 4 positive blue stars.
Yes.
Why would you? Sure. Why would you use another testing method after you use the blue star?
We use it as kind of a backup, just to kind of reconfirm. In the event, in my experience, we have had some that do come out testing for positive. So this way we can at least explain to the lab if we need to that it tested positive for blue star and then also on the hemostick.
And why is that important to do? You say you do that for the lab. Can you kind of explain to us why?
I think they ask us if what we've done for processing. Just I guess my assumption is it's on their end, so they know how that they can process it further. So they know if it's been treated by other chemicals or what other chemicals have been used on it before.
And generally, when you do an application like this of some sort of a testing, do you tell the lab what you did so they know what may or may not be on there?
That's correct.
With regards to the hemosticks, can those also present a false positive sometimes?
Yes, they can.
Have you seen that in your experience?
I have, yes.
And can you explain what the hemosticks look like? I believe you said that they were little strips of paper. How small are we talking?
They are probably 2 inches, 2.5 inches in length, 1/8 of an inch wide.
Very narrow then.
Very, very narrow. Yes. Okay. And then one end, it's got a different material on it. I can't remember if it's a different color, but it's obvious that that is the end where you put whatever reaction or whatever you want to test against on that end.
Did you use some hemosticks on other areas of the car, interior, other clothing that was found in the car, items that were found in the car in general?
Yes, I did.
And generally speaking, where did you send the ones that came back, these presumptive positive from the hemosticks? Where did you send those?
To the state lab.
Did you have any that you tested with hemosticks that actually came back negative for blue star first?
That's correct. Yes.
And did you collect swabs from there as well?
Yes.
And where did you send those?
We just kept those at the police department.
Okay. Later on, do you know if any of those were sent to the state lab?
I don't recall.
Did you also, I believe you said before that you had, oh, excuse me. No, you didn't. Were you ever involved in a search of 77 Guilford Street?
Yes, I was.
And what was your role in that search?
I was asked to blue star a little section of the basement area.
Of a section of the basement area.
That's correct.
Okay. And other than that, did you have any other role to play in the search of that Guilford Street address?
I had to go back another time for a secondary search using blue star in a different area of the basement. And then I also assisted in a search of the property at 77 Guilford Street.
With regards to the 2 blue star applications at 77 Guilford Street, were they, so you said one was in the basement. Where was the second one about?
In the basement as well.
And also in the basement. And did either of those produce any positive results?
No, they did not.
What about the search of 644 Union Street later on? Were you present during a search of that residence?
Yes, I was.
All right. And who was primarily doing the search of that residence?
Representatives from the FBI.
And what was your role that day during that search?
My role is just mostly being an observer. If they identified something that's going to be taken as evidence, they would physically collect it from where it was, pass it off to myself, and I would bring it down to another representative from the FBI who would complete the evidence log and collect that piece of evidence and do their own documentation.
Just a brief moment, please, Ron.
Don't you wish you could just hear what they're whispering to each other? Let me know in the chat. The nosy ones. I'm one of the nosy ones. I want to hear. What are they saying?
Sergeant Leary, I just have three last quick questions for you. With regards to the search of the trunk, you stated that you applied Blue Star, if I was correct, and you took 4 swabs. Were those 4 swabs from areas that tested presumptively positive
Yes.
under the Blue Star? Okay. And did you see any other indications back there that you deemed to be false positives?
Yes.
Okay. And how many? Do you remember?
It's maybe 3 or 4.
Hi,
No, maybe
Trudy.
2 or 3 in the trunk area.
2 or 3 in the trunk areas. Okay. And with regards to the other areas of the car, did you find food wrappers in that car or food containers?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Just one or multiple?
I found multiple. There are like snack packs, some baby bottles, some baby food containers, and other miscellaneous wrappers for food.
In your search of the car, were there a large number of pieces of evidence that were taken out that were assigned with your name, BEO1, BEO2, BEO3, things like
Yes.
that? Okay. And were those ones that you had seized and then again got logged in under your initials?
That's correct.
At this time, Sergeant Leary, I don't have any further questions for you.
Somebody allegedly sitting in the courtroom, Jessica, she says, I'm sitting in the courtroom as we speak. I live in New Hampshire, justice for harmony. Amen to that. Amen for justice for harmony. All right, so here comes the defense now. The defense is going to be asking their questions. This should be a bit obnoxious for a little bit, but listen, I want to just say something. The defense has a job to do, and their job is to defend Adam Montgomery, right? So what they're doing is annoying to us.
Gentlemen, I think this is a good natural breaking point for you all to break for lunch. So I'm
Okay,
gonna
lunch break.
I'm
I'll
gonna
finish my
release you for
thought after
lunch.
this.
I remind you, don't discuss the case with each other or with anybody else. Make sure that you are keeping an open mind. Don't do any research. Don't look up any media. And we will see you after the lunch break if you would return at
All right, I'm going to pause that. I'm not sure. Is this Ed Wallace that just joined? Is this you, Ed? It is. All right, Ed's trying to join from either the airplane or the airport, but he's having a hard time probably getting video. He could probably join by audio only, but it looks like it's trying to connect his video, and that's not happening. It doesn't look like he's got a good enough connection. But Ed's going to be trying to join. So let me finish what I had to say, but I want to hear what they're saying here.
o'clock. I'm sure you're tired, but I need to
Hold on.
have a break. So, all right, everybody, 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock.
Yes.
All right, so it's 12:07.
Okay, give me 1 minute. You may sit down. I reviewed the letter. I just want to review the draft letter.
All right, so they're looking to review a letter. I don't want to miss anything. So we're going to get into all the Blue Star, and we'll explain it all probably sometime tonight. But I was hoping Ed could come on here quickly by audio. If he wants, he could try calling me on the phone, and then I could just put. Oh, there he is. Yes. Hey, brother.
Hey, what's going on?
So you're on New Hampshire?
Where? I'm in Atlanta.
Oh, Atlanta. Okay. Somebody said you were in New Hampshire. I was like, that is a heck of a freaking stop.
No. I mean, I just got out of the snowstorm in New York, and now I'm trying to get out of those lights. Yeah, there you go.
Don't worry about the lights. Real quick while we have you, Ed. What would you take about this Blue Star? Can Blue Star be over applied and you lose? I know you talked about this in the past. And you
Yeah,
lose.
well, you're looking for latent blood to begin with. So it typically with latent blood, there are possibilities that it was already washed down. That's why it's latent, in attempts to clean it up. So if you're going to continue to dilute it with Blue Star, and you could over saturate it with the Blue Star and then dilute it to the point that it's hurtful in trying to get genetic material. Now, in addition, Blue Star is a base, in the pH scale, it's a base. So there are too much spraying of it and contact time of it could cause some destruction as well.
So you heard the two testimonies from the detective and then the sergeant, right? They were asking the detective, police officer slash detective, about what he did in the trunk, and he was unsure. Is there a reason you think, Ed, they brought him on first and then the sergeant on second? I mean, I know
Well,
he had nothing to do with the reports, and a lot of people were like, "Why are they bringing an unprepared guy on?" But
Well-
because he was at the scene, they had to bring him on, right?
Well, he did the trunk. He testified that he did the trunk. He didn't do any of the Blue Star to the exterior of the car. Okay, but he swabbed the trunk Blue Star stain that fluoresced. Now, this isn't. This is chemical. Excuse me, I misspoke. It didn't fluoresce. It chemical luminesced like a glow stick. You know, the kind that the chemical lights where you crack the ampule and mix the two chemicals together and it glows.
Right.
That's what luminol in Blue Star does. It glows for a short period of time with the contact of the chemical. But again, you don't want to spray too much of that chemical on. You want to get your blue glow, your chemical luminescence, document it with photography, with out flash and then with flash on a tripod, time exposure to get that blue chemical luminescence, and then you hit the flash at the end to illuminate it with your second photo, showing that, okay, here's the blue and here's what surrounding the blue, because we typically do it in pitch dark.
Right. What's the difference between luminol and Blue Star? Are they one and the same, or people were asking about that, Ed?
They're very similar. They have the same basic chemical components, just a little different formula.
So it's the same but different, basically.
Yeah, just very slightly different.
Okay.
And Blue Star was developed after luminol and has is said to be better for the DNA.
Okay, so we're going to do hashtag Ed, hashtag DutyRon. Ed, you got a minute or two, or you got to run?
Well, I just made it to my connection, and we're going to be boarding in a few minutes.
Okay, so Ed's got a couple of minutes. Hashtag Ed for your forensic questions. It's a little noisy environment because he's waiting to take a connecting flight. So those people that you hear in the background are obviously the people in the airport, but we can still hear you really good, Ed. We can hear you really good. So hashtag Ed for your questions. Here's one from Vicky, a channel member. She says, Ed, is there a way to tell old blood from newer blood with chemicals, or is that just observation?
No, you can't age it that way. No, they technically, to date, there has been no ability to age the blood stain, just from the blood alone.
All right. And if they were to take blood samples from luminol or from some of their findings and brought it into a lab, is there a way to test that blood? How long?
Yeah.
How long that's been there? Yeah.
Not to age it, no. Only to see if it's in fact blood and if there's enough material there to get a genetic profile.
So just to not to tell how long it's been there.
Right. Nope. Can't say that.
What else were you going to say? And I'm talking.
Right, because I was a little there was a little confusion with the testimony that hold on a second, that he took swabs, but he didn't know if it went to the lab. I didn't understand that, because look, when I take swabs, I do a voucher. I have it vouchered, and I have a lab request form, and I am telling that officer who's doing the vouchering, okay, this is going to the lab, and I'm telling the lab what I want done with it. So I didn't understand how he didn't know, unless he passed the swabs off to somebody else and left it to their discretion of whether to have it analyzed.
Right. That's what was confusing to me when he agreed with the defense attorney. He was like, if that's what you're saying, yeah. Like,
no, I mean, that's ridiculous.
I couldn't believe I heard that. I was just like, what? I was like,
well, for the most part, he was doing
now.
Yeah, for the most part, he was doing a good job with his testimony up until a couple of things, little things like that, and the fact that he didn't know that Blue Star and luminol will react with certain foods.
Right. Yeah. Ed, New Jersey Robin says, hashtag Ed, will they have challenged it if the car was in a junkyard? Like, in other words, did that car make it to a junkyard? Then they recovered it.
Yeah, well, it looks like they did. It looks like it was in a junkyard when they recovered it from the junkyard. It looked like it had been stripped already and had been gone through by numerous people.
Right, and it was being stripped down for parts, maybe for money, for drugs or whatever. So yeah, that's a good question, New Jersey Robin. It could be challenged because how many people have handled it since it's gotten into that junkyard? You know?
Well, you can't control what happened to it before it. You can only control what happens to it afterwards. So you
Right.
saw the condition that they found it. You saw the condition of all the car parts that were inside of the vehicle, and they had to methodically remove those car parts.
Retired 911 operator says, Ed, final destination, if you can share.
Knoxville, Tennessee. I'm going by the body farm.
He's going to the body farm. As we stated this on our
No.
last members only.
I'm not going specifically there, but I'm going to make a special trip there, take some photos so that with my forensic team, so we could share with our viewers.
Okay, excellent. So Ed is going to go to the body farm. Hashtag Ed, how much blood is needed for a genetic profile ID?
Not much. Low copy number, LCN. All you need is just a simple touch and go.
Yep. I'm trying to get to all the questions.
It's in micrograms.
All right,
It may,
very small amount. Yes. Marlena Cantu says, Ed, is the next process / steps if you get a false positive? What is the next process / steps if you get a false positive? Great question, Marlena.
well, in the field, you're not going to know that you got a false positive. If you did the testing correctly and you followed everything, the lab will make that determination. So the next test will not be a confirmatory test for blood. What the next test was, they'll go right into genetic examination, and that will be the definitive test.
Sheila, thank you for this question. He said that he was a junior on that aspect. The first officer / detective said he was, in training and he didn't know, he didn't have much experience. But what about the sergeant when he was asked if he did the luminol, how many times he did it? He said only 15 to 20 times as Ed boards the plane.
Yeah, I don't understand that, and I don't understand doing the exterior of the vehicle. I mean, was there any evidence?
We're starting to lose Ed because he's boarding the plane. This is a first for Crime Time with DutyRon. If Ed could get on the plane and connect to the planes like Wi-Fi, that fly-fi, and imagine we get Ed to give us some Q&A while he's up in the air or while on the plane. I said that to him in a text message. I said, Ed, wouldn't that be amazing if you had the Wi-Fi on the plane? They call it fly-fi, and they offer it on most flights. Wouldn't that be cool? Ed at 37,000 feet giving us some forensic testimony. I think he answered quite a bit of questions. This is Ed. We lost his feed because he was walking onto the plane. He's still connected, so he may come back. So I'm just trying to eat up a little bit of time. But this shows you folks the dedication of Ed Wallace, Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. This man is traveling to Tennessee, to Knoxville, Tennessee, home of the body farm, to do forensic training. And he is on with us via cell phone to give us an overview of the testimony we heard. So what I was trying to say to Ed is that sergeant said he only used luminol 15 to 20 times. Did anybody catch on to that? That's not a lot of luminol scenes. Like, you talk with Ed and he says that he processed over 2,800 crime scenes in his career. This sergeant was telling us that he only used luminol 15 to 20 times. That's not an awful lot. I mean, it's not like he never used it before. It's a decent number, but I wanted to hear a little bit more. Like from me, I would have liked to have heard him say, yeah, I've used this hundreds of times. I've done this on many, many different cases, but 15 or 20, it's not a lot. So, anyways, they're on a lunch break, and it really, 1 o'clock, they said they're going to come back in less than an hour. So I'll pop back on at 1 o'clock. If you want, please, give this video a thumbs up. I want to give a couple of more memberships out, some free memberships to all the people here. I've given 10 of them away already. I'll give 5 more now. So here's 5 more free memberships to Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. I hope you guys get the 30-day free memberships and consider staying after the 30 days. We do a lot of educational videos, and welcome to all the new members. It's going out right now in the chat. So thank you for being here. I hope you enjoyed the coverage of the morning of day 5 in the Harmony Montgomery murder trial. Adam Montgomery is on trial for murder of his daughter, and we'll pick it back up at 1 o'clock. I hope you guys will come back and join after 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope to see you then. Peace and love from Crime Time with DutyRon, and welcome to all the new members. We'll see you soon. Stand by for a message from the cop team. That's Kara. That's Ed's dog, Kara. Oscar, my bird, which is right here. You guys have been hearing him the whole stream. Kara, Oscar, and Popeye. So Kara, Oscar, my dog, Popeye, my bird. I got it wrong. That's the cop team. We'll talk to you soon.